All right, what is up, everybody? Zombies here again, and we are back with another episode of the Fighting Pit podcast. So this is episode 10. We finally made it to double digits. Super hype about that. And I am joined with my two co-hosts here, Mullahoo and WizardBeast. How y'all doing?
Doing great. Glad to be back for another episode.
Yeah,
Now we're super stoked. We're glad to be back. And you guys might notice that we're missing our Tangster. Our co-host has been slurped up, unfortunately, by Anixia. I think he got stuck in a house last week, and now Anixia has him in her clutches. We gotta get him out. I don't know how we're gonna get him out, but we're gonna try. We have to go do the raid. We gotta figure out where the raid is, and then we gotta go get him out.
Yeah, the raid he's dealing with right now is the real life raid. So as much as we all love our children's card games, sometimes real life responsibilities do have to take priority. So Tankster's going to be away for an undisclosed amount of time, but he will be back with us eventually, and we just wanted to let everyone know about that. Congratulations to him again, though, on getting the house. So it's a really exciting thing. And we're really happy for him. And you'll still find him lurking around in the Mercs Discords and on Twitter and stuff. So it's not like he's disappearing on everybody. Just needs a little bit of time to get the real life stuff going, which totally understandable. But getting into some news here, we have like a lot of stuff to cover this week. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I definitely was a little blindsided by the announcement we got today. We knew something was coming, right? They teased it, the teaser
yesterday.
of the teaser yesterday, the announcement of the announcement, right? Yesterday, and then boom, all this information. I don't think anybody was really expecting full patch notes today, and even more exciting, they're going to be launching in the game next week on Tuesday. So I figured mention that, were you guys expecting this, or were you just as taken off guard as I was?
I was shocked that it's coming out 5 days from now. Tuesday, right around the corner, and a bunch of new mercs and all of this patch notes and everything. It's just, I'm honestly really excited for it. So that it's coming out so fast, it's nice to kind of just have it all going, but I was definitely thrown a little bit off by just how fast all of this content's been coming out. It was only 3 weeks ago that the other mercs are now out, so definitely got thrown a little bit for this one.
Yeah, it really seems like they're doubling down, at least in Mercenaries. It seems like they're doubling down on the you don't get to play with everything. You don't get all the toys. I'm sorry, you just don't, right? Like they are saying barely already. I mean, zombies, like you were saying, like we know that maxed isn't necessarily the same thing as like getting your toy up to a playable level, but like you almost have all the new mercs max, but you don't yet. And it to the point where it's almost like not humanly possible to get max content by the time the new content comes out. This to me really feels like they are saying, we're giving you 5 Pokemon to pick from. You pick one, you get them sick. By the next time new mercs roll around, you might pick another one and then start kind of sideline working on your rest. It really doesn't feel like they expect us, no matter how hard the community fights back, to be able to get all the mercs right away. This is the fastest double back-to-back release. I barely have Sinestra playable, let alone Belinda, let alone everybody else. I mean, I don't even have my Valera uncrafted, right? So I am maybe the closest stand-in to the average player at this point, and this feels fast for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've even seen some other members of the community, like Signs and I were hanging out in WizardBeast's stream earlier today, and he was like, I'm not ready to grind these new mercs. and he does more grinding than like anybody I know. He has a pretty respectable EU collection. He has a mostly done NA collection.
Yeah, he's
like
double collection is ludicrous.
The man is a machine.
Actually, ludicrous.
He's an absolute machine, and I respect it. But even he was like, I don't know, like if I'm ready to grind these new mercenaries.
If we're breaking the grinder machines already, some cog is in the wrong spot, right? Like if you're pushing the mental of those players, I mean, there's an interesting phenomenon where I would say that if anything, those are the players who are the ones getting their mental broken the most because they think or feel, or out of like you said, kind of like content creator obligations, right? Like that they feel as if they are obligated to grind these mercs right away and get them ready to go immediately, and that is pushing their limits. The average player, I think, is just long ago they said, okay, I'm not gonna get there, so at least they gave up that perception, right? But again, I will go to my grave saying that one of the biggest problems that Mercenaries has is this perception problem of the players themselves about what this game is, how to play this game, how much they should be playing, how much they should be grinding, and this is doing us no favors.
Yeah, and like you mentioned before, I really liked the tweets you put out about it. I think it was earlier today, where it's like Mercenaries almost has a bit of an identity problem. And I think the perception problems stem from this because you can't really fault the players for not being sure what the game is when the game isn't even sure itself of what it is, or it doesn't feel like it's sure of what it is. At least it doesn't feel like that to me. It feels like there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like there's an idea there, but it's very far from being fully realized, or just kind of giving you that sense of accomplishment you would feel in a lot of other grindy games like this. Like, I think one complaint, or maybe complaint probably isn't the right word, but one, I guess, critique some people give is that, well, if you aren't enjoying the PvE in Mercenaries, it's because you don't like grindy games. Grinding is the game. It's that, checking the box, and that's a satisfying thing. And totally, I mean, I understand that perspective. I enjoy a lot of games like that. But for some reason, the Mercenaries PvE just doesn't give me that same sense of accomplishment that I'm used to feeling in a lot of those grindy type games. And I think it has a lot to do with the structural issues in PvP, where it feels like you're not really working towards anything with these powerful characters. At least with PvP, you have very legitimate reasons to get those skills up and get that additional +1/+5, because in some matchups that might make the difference. But in PvE, it feels like I'm not, working towards, getting my character these specific abilities leveled up so I can go take on this specific boss. Because even with the heroics, some of them, are a little bit harder, but most of them, not the hardest stuff in the world, right? Like it's very, I think it's a little bit more casual friendly, so players who aren't like super invested in all the strategies can still have fun and mess around with the PvE stuff, because I think that was the target demographic of this mode. I think it was a attempt at giving people who enjoy PvE their own kind of focus in Hearthstone outside of just like the Book of Mercenaries. They just so happened to couple a really great PvP mode on top of it. And
yeah.
I think
which one was the accident? I'm honestly not sure.
Yeah, and it just, I've seen it happen in similar games where the identity is not clear of the game, and then that creates problems in the communities for those games because it's not clear. You end up with players arguing with one another about which way to play the game is right, or the intended way to play, because everyone wants their way to be the right way, right? And it creates like a divide between like sections of player base. I've seen that happen in like games like RuneScape. I mean, you could even make an argument that it happens in Hearthstone formats a little bit, with like we've seen some of the drama between the standard and wild communities in the last few months. Like it just feels like I think some players, one or even both of those groups, sometimes will feel like their side is not being really listened to by the main company. And then obviously that frustrates people, right? Because people want to feel like, they want the game to go in whatever direction they find is fun.
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, we were kind of to go back to what you were talking about in terms of like Mercenaries being a grindy game. We were talking about this before the show a little bit. And like you were saying, you were like, I love grindy games, right? I don't get me wrong. Grindy games are sick, but it just kind of feels like Mercenaries lacks that kind of oomph, or that really just the really tangible reward, right, for what the grindy game is. And as soon as you said it again now, I kind of realized it, that maybe a part of the problem is the fact that when you think about all these other grindy games, for example, it tends not to be just grind up all of your Pokemon to max level, right? It's that in order to, like you said, do a heroic or like beat the final boss or full clear the map, right? There is some kind of like another grind element that is solved by grinding. But in Mercenaries, we just have the grind, max out your Pokedex, stop. Right? At least even the Pokemon games that have that grind of you want to fill out your Pokedex, like if that's what really just rustles your jimmies, then like you can do that. But again, those games have another level deeper within the PvE, and we just don't have that yet, right? That deeper level is PvP, but that's either a very different type of player demographic, so the grinders don't care about PvP, or that is the payoff, and now you're forcing PvP players to do PvE, and that sucks, right? So hopefully the inevitable PvE endgame, quote unquote, does get resolved, and we get that, and maybe that just solves all our problems overnight. But this is a brand new problem, I think, that people are not even really understanding. I wasn't really understanding, but that feels like something we're getting closer towards another solution towards solving some of these player perception issues.
Yeah, that'd be great. Curious, what do you think about all this, WizardBeast?
I think the main thing with the PvE is currently the rewards. A lot of people are doing the grinding, and it's most of the time for Mysterious Stranger, where they're literally just going up and hoping, I land on the Mysterious Stranger for the task. You're doing it and just hoping like that it's a random thing also is not great. And then even if you retire, you're getting random rewards for that too. So it's just when you're getting a bunch of random things in the attempt to grind up your collection, it's not the best way. So I would way rather have a very hard grind up in a bounty, lose it a couple times and spend a lot of time, and then go up and finally beat it on, say, like the third, fourth time, and then get a massive load of coins for mercenaries that I want to level up. That would make it, I feel, like so much better for the whole player base. If they come out eventually with the legendary mode, because we know it's been announced, it'd be awesome if it was a super hard thing, but you get to the end and maybe it's like, hey, 200 coins or 250 coins for just these mercenaries. And it's like, I can grind this up instead of just doing tasks, which I also think is a problem. Is just you have these tasks. This is the best way to get them up right now. It'd be cool to actually do the bounties that you need for these characters, because then everyone would be playing all of the bounties, not just like one or three, or it's makes it so the PvE is also being used, and then you're not doing the same PvE mission 100 times for every mercenary. If I do this one for 3 different mercenaries, that's great, and then I get to try a whole new one for another 3. That to me would be amazing. It's just fixing the reward problems currently.
Yeah.
And they kind of started to do that, right? Like they at least took a step in the right direction with the fact that the heroics unlock the equipment. Like I think that's basically exactly in the direction that you're talking about of like, let me just do, that's why I'm almost like kind of surprised that they nerfed. I mean, to kind of briefly talk about what came in a semi-previous patch of that, they actually nerfed some of these heroics. I was pleasantly surprised with how hard they were. Like I said, at one point, Zombies was just like fuming because the stupid Drekthar fight was so hard. But then, like, you beat it, right? And then you were like, that's that PvE like pop off that I think the grinders really want, and has that like Dark Souls element of like, I will just slam my head into this wall for the next hour if it means getting something cool. If it means if this is the only way to do it, I'll do it. Sure, it will take a while, but then I will feel good when I do it. The problem there is that you do waste a ton of time. Like now, if you're only trying to get the equipment, right, all the rewards on the way don't really feel as good. The failure still sucks. And yeah, like I said, I tweeted about it or whatever yesterday. And like WizardBeast was saying, if every time that I go and try to get a Mysterious Stranger, especially if it's like the first time where I'm like, I'm gonna do some tasks. I'm gonna go find some Sinestra tasks. Spend some time doing a heroic, get to a Mysterious Stranger, it's a sabotage. I just want to stop playing. I simply want to put the video game down, right? Like, that's insane. So I would love it if there was something like a discover your reward, pick one, right? Like WizardBeast was saying, just have 200 coins for one dude, go next, right? Something tangible, something so it doesn't feel like you just waste time. And at the moment, we are certainly just floundering in this, oops, wasted my pack, oops, wasted my gold, oops, wasted my time grinding, oops, 14,000 MMR tie, right? Like it, wherever you turn at the moment, it just feels like this odd waste of time. And that is not really an acceptable thing in the long term.
Yeah, it's just frustrating when you get that moment where it's just like I felt that same thing in doing task farming and stuff. Just doing it over and over, and it really feels like tasks weren't. I don't think they were really designed to be farmed like that, right? But that's just people want to play PvP or people want to get their stuff maxed as fast as possible. Figured out that's just the best way to do it, and it is. It's like, as far as I'm aware, it's pretty unrefutably the best way to do it. You grind up your tasks for a new guy, then you won't get all the coins for him, but depending on if you had some luck with the packs you got when the new mercs dropped, or if you just want to do some dedicated heroic 1-1 farming with just one mercenary, once you get their 1 or 2 skills up that you need to clear it, it's just the way to do it. And it leaves 95% of PvE unused. Like, once I beat those
I can't feel good
heroics,
as
like
perspective.
never going back to those heroics, right? Like, why would I? They're time consuming, and I even though I did like a lot of the fights and I actually liked how it was more challenging getting to the fights, the rewards are not worth that challenge. Like, if I want to actually be effective and for producing consistent content on it, I kind of need to be effective with it if I don't want to waste my own time. There's no point in me doing that. It just doesn't make sense. So we're gonna talk about some more stuff about that kind of stuff, things that could be changed, and some issues that definitely don't seem to be resolved in this upcoming patch. But we're gonna save that for the end, because there's
we got dragons.
Yeah, we got some exciting stuff. I did want to mention, since you mentioned the heroic nerfs, something else that came like a day or two after that, and I'm totally going to take credit for this, whether I influenced it or not. Is they actually informed us of something in the mailbox that wasn't about spending money. So they did mention that the heroic bounties have been nerfed, and they did actually put that in the mailbox so you can see it in game, which is fantastic. That was I made that suggestion on like Twitter like a day before or something. I was like, hey, you should put this in game. Like, casual players who have tried this before and who got stomped are probably not going to know it's nerfed. They probably aren't checking out the patch notes, right? If they're more just casual with it. And so they won't know anything's changed. So you got to give them a little heads up. And they did. They put that in the mailbox. It was really nice. Happy to see that. Hoping long term, maybe they can throw the bug fix changes in there too. Not all of them, but just the ones that impact like PvP in a very relevant way, because sometimes they change things that are really important to know, and if you don't read the patch notes, there's no way of knowing that stuff. Like the Karen,
the Karen,
Fox,
Brucon,
just changes they make to some of these characters where it's not really necessarily a buff or a nerf, but it's just not working how they want it to work, so they change it. But sometimes those changes really change your lines of play in PvP if you want to play optimally. So I think it's important to get that in there too, but one step at a time, right? They're in the right direction using the mailbox for some other stuff now, so really happy to see that. But yeah, we do have new mercs here that we're really excited to talk about. Before we get like full breakdown and talking into all of them, though, I figured we could talk just a little bit about what the current meta's been looking like, because obviously it hasn't been that long since the new Mercenaries came out, right? Like I have 3 out of the 5 max so far, but as soon as I finish that third one, I haven't touched PvE in over a week because I'm good on it. I'm happy.
Too much.
Yeah, it just overdid it to get them out to try some fun new comps and stuff, which was great. I personally have really been loving this meta, and I think, at least so far, it might be my favorite Mercenaries meta we've ever had. It's just been, I really like the 2 biggest things that stick out to me are, 1, more variety. We aren't just seeing the same 3 comps over and over again. There are some popular ones, but they're it feels like some more fringe stuff is now viable. But the big thing that I really, really like is now there's a reason to have flexible openers, whereas we really didn't see a lot of that in the past metas. There was maybe once in a while, but it was pretty rare. I think kind of a big strategy in, Mercs PvP is, you have your starting lineup and you learn it, and you have your backup lineup and you learn it, and then you can kind of throw those into different comps, and even if you're trying something new, you know how to play either the front line or the back line. Well, now with some of these comps, you can start like 4 or 5 different ways, and they're all pretty effective. And depending on what the matchup is, it actually is very important that you start in different ways. And that kind of gives you that those mind games we sometimes get in tournaments and stuff. And I just think it's a lot of fun. Like, I love if I'm queuing into the same person 2, 3, 4 times, and we're switching openers every time, that's like, it makes the game so much more interesting because it's not going to play out the exact same game after game after game.
Yeah, no, I've been loving it. My favorite comp right now has 5 different openers. So I love playing the game, and then even going against the same people, as you were saying, might have different openers every time. Or the cool thing about having the the variety of different openers is when I see 1, 3, 2, I know, okay, they have more fighters, maybe I want to put out my reds, or hey, if they're going to have more blues, maybe I want to put out my greens for this one. So it's cool to have all these different openers, and it works really well in this meta just because there are so many comps, especially with all of the old comps coming back too. I saw Mullahoo was playing a lot of nature recently on his stream, so it's cool to like see that come back. Even some nature Sam. So it's cool to see all of the old comps coming back also. So it's been a lot of fun for this meta.
Wait, what's your 5 different openers comp that people need to know? Unless it's secret sauce.
No, it's so for the reds it is Localar and Ragnaros. And then greens is Sinestra and Belinda, and then for the blues is Varden and Jaina.
Yeah.
So I can have a frost opener, fire opener. If there's the frost Valera, then I put Rag Localar in, so I can't be frozen, and then it just blows that up. And then I've sometimes even opened up Sinestra. I've gone against a 4 blue, 2 red, where it's been a holy opener. So that was a really cool thing where Zyrella, Velen, Anduin. So I actually put Sinestra in, and it's great because, they have so much sustain as holy, but they don't have a lot of damage to kill Sinestra, and then you just hit all of them for 60. So it's really cool to have all of the just different openers. You can kind of just figure it out before the game even starts. It's like a little mind game of itself.
Yeah, it's super cool, and I love that comp so much. I watched Dallas play that one a lot, and actually I joined him on stream like a couple nights ago. We did a little co-op with it because there's so many different like lines you can take with it. I love everything about that deck, and I think it is one of the best ones in the game right now, purely because of how versatile it can be against pretty much anything. Like Frost Valera seems really oppressive versus some matchups. Like WizardBeast said, you throw that Ragnaros out there turn 1, you think it's going to be them. They have a very hard time with that if they go with their standard Varden, Valera, and Belinda opener. So it's just great. I really love it, and it's hard to play. It is not. I would say it's a pretty. I mean, you can probably do well with it without thinking too hard with it. But if you want to like master that comp, I think it's going to be very, very hard to get to a point where you're always seeing what the correct line is, especially with all those versatile openers.
And I love that that versatility is becoming more and more of a thing. And so I also really like this meta, right? Like WizardBeast was saying, I've just been playing my deck from November, right? And I've had various people talking to me and being like, I haven't played in forever, or like my Mercs aren't maxed, or I don't really know like what's good right now. I've just been telling them like, look at me, like my Mercs aren't all maxed. I'm literally playing a deck from 3 months ago that literally doesn't have a new Merc from the last 2 months, 3 months of new guys, and I'm just doing fine. I'm climbing. It's great. You still win games. It's still fine. Like that is just a player perception issue more than anything. But Like WizardBeast said, I think the diversity right now is great of the format. Love seeing all this old stuff coming back. Valera is still a little bit of a problem. Varden is still like a little bit of a problem. Jaina is still a little bit of a problem, I would say. But I mean, that's okay. It's not nearly as bad as it was, right? Valera is getting chunked down. But the only thing that I kind of wanted to say is that I think it's really cool that people are getting these like multiple different openers based on whatever they're playing against. I think it's sick if you can get a read that is meaningful based off of the color pips, right? That you can see triple fighter and then you lead local R and rag. It feels a little inbred to me that people are focusing on building decks just for like rematches, because that seems like something that should be fixed in the near future when we get more people playing, MMR changes, more diverse comps. Like that seems like something that is just kind of a flavor of the minute. But I mean, it really does translate into tournament, and that will always be an eternal basically function of the game, hopefully, as long as the game keeps going. So it's still good practice, but it does feel like oddly inbred to me. But it's, at the end of the day, it's still really cool, and it makes for more interesting matchups. If you can think more about whatever you're doing in Mercenaries, then I think it's a good thing. So I ship it.
Yeah, definitely. And one other thing worth pointing out about that comp, it's 2-2-2. So your opponent doesn't get any kind of read on what you're opening with, unless they're expecting that. But even if you're expecting it, you don't know how they're going to open. And even if you faced them last game, you don't know they're going to open the same way. Like I'm pretty sure almost half of my games during a 3 or 4 hour stream last night were against Echo. And literally we played, I think the same, we stuck on our comps for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 games before switching them up, but we would just the leads would be different like every single time. Because I'd try to swap my lead to be better against what he led, and he'd do the kind of the same thing. And so it's like it's weird, but it's really, especially when you can't get a read on what your opponent has by looking at the color pips. Like if it is just 2-2-2 like this comp is, like you don't know what it is, because 2-2-2 could be a lot of different things, right? Like, you know what else is 2-2-2? The new version of GBT. Right, like Grom, Valera, Thrall, Shadow with Vol'jin and Natalie, and then Sinestra. That's 2-2-2. And I tried that out on stream last night, and it felt good. It felt really good. I think that's another one of those ones that has, as I'm sure people are super sick of GVT by now. But the cool thing about this one, it's like you aren't always opening GVT, because when you think your opponent's opening a Ragnaros, or if they're actually going like full fire, which I have seen multiple times, you throw out Shadow Valera instead, and they have a really bad time. But if you had your orcs out there, I mean, yeah, they're still doing a lot of damage, but it's not going to be quite as good, especially if they're leading with something like a local R and they make you play slower. So it's I'm happy that even though Valera is still probably the best character in the game, she no longer feels required in literally everything to have like a fair matchup. She's still in, I don't know, 7 out of 10 comps or something, right? At least, not more.
Oh yeah, did Hearthstone Replay update their stuff at all?
I did a new thing on that. Yeah, so I broke down, I don't know what it is now, but I broke down the information on Monday. And basically, out of the top 15 comps, there were 9 Valeras. So it's better. It's still a lot. It's still about just under 2/3, right? But it's better than it was. And I think more importantly, now we have a way to kill the Valera, right? Like local R is insane. Like I'm thinking about doing like a fun little tier list thing eventually. And right now, in my mind, there are exactly 2 S tier characters, and they're Local R and Valera. They stand in a tier of their own right now. Like some of the stuff you can do with Local R.
You wouldn't put Sinestra up there?
No, Sinestra is a really powerful mercenary, but people have started to realize how you deal with her. And I mean, it doesn't make her bad. It's just she's probably more like high B tier to me. Like she's good, and against certain matchups she solos, which is incredible, but at least the people I've been playing against recently, I feel like most of us have figured out the key to beating the Sinestra, and unfortunately for all my Gruul gang members out there, it isn't Gruul. I want it to be Gruul so bad, but it's not. If you want to easily deal with Sinestra, you throw a Grom or a Localar on your bench, and you can basically just one hit her, which is really kind of what you have to do against a character like that, because you can't really pick her down with the healing, right? That again, that's why, I mean, we've seen, and this is actually a fascinating development, Karen Diablo Cookie. I have not run into a CDC backline in the better part of a week. Now, it's like, and that's pretty unheard of compared to last patch, where literally the vast majority of benches were either nature or CDC. Like, people are dropping Cookie because he wasn't doing enough to deal with the Sinestra, right? And to a lesser extent, same with Karen, right? Like, Karen's an incredible unit, but he doesn't really have the damage output that you need from a red to effectively deal with the Sinestra. And Diablo can still be really good, of course, but he was obviously better with the synergy with Karen and Cookie. You know, your speed ups, your fish, just making Diablo a better unit. Now, I'm not saying they're bad, but with Sinestra entering the metagame, it's kind of changed things in terms of how good they are. And I think that's been really interesting, because we know, like, as soon as Cookie dropped, that was like the dominant bench. And I really didn't think it would be upended so soon.
Yeah, I mean, it was also borderline upended by the nature bench too. Before this, even there was like, everybody wouldn't stop complaining about Karen Diablo, and then one drop later, nature bench is basically everywhere. Not even really affected by the fact that there was a new Merc. People just realized that you can play the Cookie Mouth Brucon bench, and that's good. And then basically another month later, Karen Diablo falls, and even another tier deeper below, right? This, like you said, this is a narrative that really pretty cleanly went from like everybody complaining to everyone being fine about it to Karen Diablo being the good guy all of a sudden. Like, now you're the dog if you're the one playing Karen Diablo. Like, that was a very, very fast change for a game that should be changing quickly, right? This is a good sign for what is supposed to be the kind of projected kind of turnover of these kind of mercs. So I think it's great. As a Karen Diablo Cookie player now, that I can actually just do it and not feel shitty about it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, it's fascinating to see how relatively quickly it's developed. And that's, I mean, at least for me, when I first saw Mercenaries, that was what was really one of the most appealing things about this game to me, was that on launch, yeah, some overpowered or strong things were found pretty quickly, but it felt like the meta was changing all the time. Like, you all probably remember when Beasts rose up and Crush was the thing people were starting to have to counter. And Beasts were a huge thing for like the first month. And then people figured out better stuff, and Beasts disappeared into obscurity. So but there were so many like ups and downs, like the the MAM comp was really like one of the top dogs up there for a while too, it felt like, and that came out of nowhere, right? Like, there were so many developments, and I feel like that's what's happened with this new meta too. Like I know the first video I put up on it was with the Valera Belinda Varden with the Elemental, and it was because I think I was one of the few people who actually had her all the way leveled when I played it, and it was just, you would just roll people with these freezes and these cold snaps. It felt like I was playing chess and they were playing checkers. Like, it was like, it didn't feel like we were playing the same game.
No, and I would say that's probably the biggest power level discrepancy between like any even flash in the pan deck and the rest of the format. I would say the biggest actual like power differential has been that Frost, the Varden, Valera, Belinda deck compared to the rest of the format. It actively requires a counter, or else you lose and it's not close. Like, that is crazy. But the counter is there, right? People start leveling up your Ragnaros, and we're starting to get some new mercs that may or may not help out with some Valera stuff, with some freezing stuff. So, I mean, sure, but that is spooky, and I don't think it's a coincidence that it is because of Varden and Valera in particular.
Yeah, like I feel like Varden, his freeze is very much balanced around it being how much slower it's supposed to be at 6. And when you change it to 2 or 3, things start getting a little bit ridiculous, even more so when you start scaling his damage off of those freezes. I'm sure WizardBeast can tell you about that. He's been playing a cool a summon comp, and I don't think that one very much appreciates the frost snaps.
Yeah, when you have 5 of your characters snapped in a turn, so you lose 5 abilities and they gain 15 frost damage, it's not the best feeling. You go into the next turn and you're just like, well, my whole board is dead. GG, go next.
Yeah.
That's all you can really do.
I joked a little bit about, we all remember in the last meta, GVT, that turn 1 is like a huge coin flip, right? So I joked about, this mirror of the Valeera, Belinda, Varden. It's basically the GVT mirror to Electric Boogaloo. Like it's literally, and you don't even have to do the exact same one. Like I was trying out like a memeier version of the comp where it was like triple green open and it had Sylvanas on the bench. So it was Eudora, Belinda, Valeera, and literally up against that, the Valeera, Belinda, Varden comp. Literally, it's the same coin flip, and I played against someone, I think we played 4 or 5 games, and literally, if I won the coin flip, they conceded, and if they won the coin flip, I conceded. Yeah, that's just... Because the game was over. There was, that was the whole game. So the mirror match there is pretty miserable, but I think now that it's a known entity, you're going to be seeing less of the mirror because it's such a prominent and powerful deck. People know they have to respect it with things like Ragnaros. So yeah, that's our little. That'll be our little spotlight on the meta. Just wanted to get that in there. Give you some thoughts about how we feel it's been going, because it's been really neat seeing how it progresses. And I really like you mentioned Mullahoo with some people, you might just have to, pick one Merc and go for it. Like you've been working on Sinestro, you said. Like that's what I did. Literally my first thing I did was like, all right, I'm going all in on Localar because he's independently powerful. I don't need to level up another Merc for him to be good. He's good on his own. He gets better with synergy, but like he's just independently incredibly strong. So I'll work on him. I'll get him leveled up first. And again, he's one of those characters where even though all of his abilities are good, if you wanted to just get him PvP ready against what was, still common from the last meta, all you had to do is level up that skill 1 and his item 2, and you could rock with him. It's like Valeera, obviously it's better if you end up getting all the other skills done, but a lot of the time you can kind of just rely on that really powerful item and that really powerful skill 1, and it's still really good in PvP. Definitely recommend people don't always feel like you got to, get everything all fully leveled up. Otherwise, you're going to be at a strict disadvantage in PvP because it's just not always the case. There are some fringe cases. Like we know one of the fringe cases is Localar. There's a break point where if you have him maxed and with cookie health, he can survive, I think, Shadow Samuro or Shadow Valeera focusing him on turn 1.
And full nature with Brucon and Go.
Oh yeah,
he survives as well. So like,
I didn't know that one.
Comps continue to stack up of that you exactly avoid lethal, and then you just 6,000 everything.
Yeah. Oh, you can't be going fast if he's gonna live. You'll live to regret it. But yeah, no, it's really it's funny though because like we mentioned, Cookie isn't in everything right now because all these different backbenches are changing. And Cookie, I think, is one of the ones where even though he's really good, he doesn't have a lot of power on his own. He's more support. So I think he's one of the first ones being cut a lot of the time. And we actually see that in a lot of these Localar comps. They aren't running Cookie. So that breakpoint actually isn't quite as relevant as I really thought it would be in the beginning, because the vast majority of the time I'm seeing Localar now, it's not with a Cookie. So I thought that was interesting because, I mean, Cookie was literally the most played Merc in everything, and it wasn't close, like, because he was just so generically good into pretty much any comp for that additional health, the snipes. I mean, he just great Merc, right? But all it took was a bit of a shifting of the meta and a really powerful nuke like Sinestra becoming a thing, where suddenly it's a little bit of a liability to have a character that, or not really to have him, more so to be lacking a character that can burst Sinestra or another character like that down. So really interesting developments, and I'm really curious to see how it's going to continue to shake out. We do have the new Mercs coming next week, and we're going to get into those in a second here. But as we saw with the last Mercs release, it's probably going to take a good week post-release before you start seeing like any of these characters in PvP. Because like I would consider that I have more time than most to be grinding this game, and it still took me like maybe if you want to just focus one and level it up like people did with Localar, maybe you can get it in a day or 2 days. I did that with Valera, but we're noticing a little bit of a different trend, and it's a trend I'm happy to see. They look like they're going with these new mercenaries having more of these very interesting and very diverse skills. And a lot of them look very playable. Like in the first few bunches, Pirate Drop, we got Cookie as our main playable. Sure, there were other decent units in there too, but Cookie was by far the star. Then obviously with Valera, same kind of situation. But last Merc drop was really the first time we had a drop where it really felt like all of these characters, I mean, some were worse than others, yes, but all of these characters felt like they could have some kind of role in PvP, and from what we've seen, it's a huge impact on the meta, right? So I was a little worried, like, are we going to... I was hoping we'd see more of these interesting designs, because the characters are just... They feel so much more... It feels like there's a lot more depth to them than a lot of the base mercenaries we got on launch. And I'm really glad they're sticking with that, because, like, these mercenaries are really, really cool.
It seems like every Merc that was designed in 2022 was just from a completely different year. Even though it was a month later, it literally feels like as soon as that year turned over, everything that has come out for Mercenaries so far, the design complexity, that kind of the power creep has been ratcheted up a little bit. And even just the PvE, right? But I mean, it could just exactly correspond to the fact that Mercenaries got their own dedicated team, right? Like Mercenaries didn't have their own dedicated team. Now they do. Now the game's starting to get really good. I don't really think it's a coincidence.
Interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, I could definitely see that impacting it. I honestly, my guess was that most of these mercenaries were made at the same time. I figured they have a big pool, but it's just so stark of a contrast between like last year's and this year's. It's like you said, it feels like a whole different ball game with what these characters can do. So we're gonna get into them here. Let's see. Who wanted to start with the dragon again?
I'll start with Longshin.
Yeah.
So for Longshin, I am so excited for this one. I've been waiting for an Arcane Mercenary to finally come in, bring that Millhouse and Tronde back into the comp, maybe with some Blink Fox too. So Longshin is the legendary caster. So we finally got another legendary that is not a fighter. We got a caster, and it's also a dragon. First ability at 7 speed, Celestial Breath, level 5, deal 19 damage to an enemy. Any access damage continues to the left or the right, and it's arcane. All of the abilities are arcane, and just for this first ability, it seems really cool. Doesn't have a cooldown on it, so this will be, if you open up, this will be your first ability going in. Second ability, 2 speed, cooldown 1, Starfire Blessing 5. For 2 turns, gain plus 3 arcane damage, and after this Merc is damaged, deal 14 damage to a random enemy. Also arcane spell. Third ability, speed 1, cooldown 1, Among the Stars 5. Give an ally plus 13 health and swap places with it. Enemy abilities targeting the Mercs swap targets if possible arcane. That right there is what I'm most excited for. just instant save one of your mercenaries, swap places with it, and they're gonna have something crit on like a red mercenary, and now it's all hitting a blue and reduces technically the damage on it. It's looking really good. The equipment,
highlight plays.
Yeah.
Some tournament highlight plays for sure with that one. Oh my god.
I know all of the mind games coming through.
Oh.
It's gonna, this hero is definitely gonna be a blast.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the
Yeah,
stats.
what's the good equipment?
Don't forget the
Yeah,
stats
true
too.
stats.
Oh yeah, sorry. The stats is 6 damage and 86 life.
It's a big boy.
So yeah,
86 is
big
good.
boy for caster too. Pretty good.
I mean, it is when
stats.
it's maxed. But so
Yeah.
81 base health is a lot for a caster. 86 already pushing 90 with Cookie like that. I mean,
pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And a lot of dragons also have a lot of healing other dragons. So having a big health pool as a dragon is also really good for it.
100%. Yeah, that's a pretty noticeable increase over Sinestra, right? I think she's like mid or low 70s when maxed. That's up there. And then the equipment. What we got there?
Equipment's also really cool. The first equipment, Bottle of Infinite Stars 4. Among the stars gives 4 more health and also grants health to your dragons. So the third ability, the Among Stars, which gives ally health and you swap with it, will now give 17 health to the ally, but then also give that health to your dragons. So if you have a full dragon comp, it will double on the dragon that you are selecting. So it'll give 38 health then right there. So it's a lot.
And then, if I'm reading this correctly, it also then gives plus 17 to every dragon you have, right?
Yeah. So that's a massive health button. And
Jeez.
One speed heal, and again, it's add health too. It's not even.
Yeah.
It's not
it's
heal,
even
so it can be at full.
It's not even other dragons. It does it to
it's himself included.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't think you can target yourself though with this ability since it says give an ally.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm not 100% sure on. I'm pretty sure it has to be another dragon. So you can't use it as like a big give health to yourself, but still, if even 17 health is still a good thing.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a dragon though, right? You can do that on anything, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The ally, the third.
It's just a bonus is for dragons. Yeah.
Yeah, from the equipment.
Yeah, that equipment is nice.
Yeah.
And then for the second equipment, this one's also really interesting, is Kunlei Crystal 4. Among the Stars starts off cooldown, so this is also for the third ability, but passive plus 8 nature resistance. So, and we were kind of going over this earlier, I'm pretty sure that it's just for Lungshin.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because as Gruul's, it's all characters that it says for the fire resistance.
Yeah, it mentions characters specifically, whereas this one is just... But still, 8? That's a lot.
Yeah, Cookie snipe for 10, now only doing 2.
Jeez. That's
so
crazy.
Definitely counters any like nature backlines. This will be great against it. Can just slowly kill the Malfurion since you're a blue and just try and survive against them.
Yeah, because they don't. If you're going full nature backline, they have no greens, right? Like they don't have a way to super effective crit this.
Yeah, they already weren't critting you as nature against blue guys, and now you just literally can probably never die.
Put it in the middle for chain lightning too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be great against Brucon's chain lightning.
Take like 14 or something like that from double hit chain lightning.
Ridiculous.
And then its last equipment, Band of Bursting Novas 4. Battle Cry, gain +3 arcane damage for each of your beasts and dragons that has died this game. So dragon beast comp maybe?
Arcane dragon beast. We got Mukla. We got Blink Fox, arcane and a beast. Starting to come together.
Yeah, this will be great. And the cool thing is, since it's a battle cry, if you pull it out as your last merc and have at least like 3 others die, then that's right there 9 arcane damage on every ability.
That's a lot.
So yeah, and the cool thing too about the Celestial Breath too is how it's excess damage is going left or right. 9 extra damage on a 19 damage ability. You're probably gonna be able to finish someone off with that by then, and then to just have the other damage go somewhere else. The only thing is it says continues left or right. Doesn't say random at all, but I'm pretty sure that's how it is.
Probably. Because
I wouldn't be surprised if you could choose.
Maybe we do have like the choose one abilities for, but yeah, I think it would be random, but it might not be.
Sure.
We also don't know, like, so what happens if you use Long Shi and Long Shin and you say you crit someone, right?
That's what I was thinking.
Does the overkill crit damage
I think
count
it does.
as what is rolled over? That's a very arcane flavored, like in WoW, arcane bullshit, like doing ludicrous crit that continues to apply as like a ludicrous number. Like that is kind of a flavorful thing for arcane stuff. That makes this Merc a lot better if you're finding a random low health red Merc and you crit it for 38 and then it rolls over like another 30 damage. Also, what happens if you crit and kill a protector and then it rolls over to a protector? Does it crit twice? I don't know.
That'd be insane.
It's very well.
It could.
It like actually totally could, which would be really funny.
That would be pretty wild. I like the way you're thinking.
Imagine doubling that spell of Tyrande and then critting on a red.
Oh, jeez. Oh my
god.
god.
Start leveling up your Tyrandas now. No, I like that. I actually did not even think about the fact that it could be I didn't even realize that it goes left or left. I think my brain just said any excess damage continues right. And my brain just stopped reading. So left or right, and it might crit, and it might overload the crit, or like overroll the crit, and it could double crit. This guy is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's exactly where my mind went with the two. It's like, all right, well, 19, that's pretty respectable. It's basically like similar to Buffed Alex, I think, with her item is 19. And it's more damage than like you realize. Like,
oh yeah,
it especially with those crits. And as we've seen with the new meta, protectors are more relevant than maybe they've ever been now, due to the abundance of like the frost comps and stuff. We're seeing tons of Ragnaros. We're seeing different protectors on the bench to deal with Sinestra. I've had people talk about Kurtrus, of all things, is apparently a good Sinestra counter. I can't confirm or deny that myself, but some players whose opinions I do respect have talked pretty highly about it. So yeah, so we're seeing a lot more protectors in the meta. So I think the fact that we're getting a really powerful dragon caster is actually going to be awesome. And I love the diversity in these items. Like my other favorite thing about the last batch of Mercenaries was, and this is something else that is just totally different than the initial launch Mercs, it felt like there is a different build in each of these items, and one of them might be a bit more overpowered than the others, but they all feel like they have a purpose and could be viable in the right kind of build. Like we've kind of, like I tried out Localar with the elemental HP, and while it does, lower his massive damage, if you're building all around that with elemental, sometimes that extra HP is actually really insane, especially if you have like a Belinda Frost elemental that goes from, a 10-15 to a 10-35, sticking around for a lot more freezes. So it's like, I love the kind of current design they seem to be sticking with, where it's not just one insane item like on Valera and then two others that basically could say no text because you're never going to use them. It feels like all three of these items could have a purpose. You've got one for your dragon focus build. You've got one that can give you help against nature. And one of the Mercs we're going to see, I think the last Merc on the list, is also going to give us some context as to why we might want some nature resistance. And then that last ability, we've seen how powerful stacking spell damage is. And the fact that you get rewarded for that for something as simple as your other mercenaries dying, as long as they're beasts or dragons, is pretty wild. Like, we have to use a 10 speed ability on Sylvanas when she comes off the bench to get her super big buff and payoff for stuff dying. Well, this happens for free when you enter. Like, so it's that's
kind of a good comparison, actually. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, right.
Sylvanas. Huh.
They're kind of similar. At least that item makes them a little bit similar, where you get that payoff for this is a bench mercenary if you're running that item. No questions asked. And you're running it with beasts or you're running it with dragons if you're running that item, right? Like, it just makes sense. So I love the design of this Merc, and I think definitely could be, I mean, just like WizardBeast said, among the stars, like, as soon as we saw Eudora printed, I felt like we were going to get something like this. As soon as we saw, like, oh, I can move my cannons around and stuff, I felt like we were going to get a swap allies and swap targets. And there's actually in like the newer Pokemon games and competitive, there's actually a ability like this, and it is absurdly powerful in things like doubles. Like, it is insane.
Changes the targets of things.
It swaps the units, so whatever targeted one targets the other, and it is just it was crazy. It's absurd how powerful that was. So I think definitely do not underestimate the power of being able to mess with your opponent's game plan and the additional mind games that come with that. Like, do you ever target the wrong ally to play around their swapping? Because if you think about it, if it's only 3 Mercs, the 2 that are going to swap have to swap because you only have 3 and you can't target itself. But if you have summons, it just says ally. It doesn't say mercenary. You could swap with a summon. There's summon stonks here.
In the way.
And get this, your summons, what if you have some summons that are beasts that die, that buff up your arcane? Like, it's I think there's a lot of neat stuff you could do with this. I'm really a big fan of it.
I mean, just having Mukwa on turn 1 gives you another beast right there, Big Brother. So right there, you could start off with, if you did a beast start, you know, you could have 4 beasts right off the bat. And if all of them die, that's 12 extra arcane damage. So add that on to the first ability already. And then if you have that crit, just going to do tons of damage. So I'm really excited for this Merc. I think this is definitely my favorite out of the bunch so far.
Yeah, he seems really, really sweet. We're going to move on to the next one, though, unless there's anything else y'all wanted to mention about him.
No, we got the good stuff.
Awesome.
All good.
So I'll do the next one here. This is the Merc that actually, you know, kind of the event we're getting is kind of all about. And we'll kind of mention the event stuff after we've gone through all the Mercs. But Chi-Ji, so I believe this was actually like an event in WoW or something, right? Or something like that. I was reading.
Another character is in WoW somewhere.
She gave like a passive buff or something. I don't know. I don't know all the stuff behind it, but I think I was reading on Twitter, Celestian was, I think, one of the people who helped design her in WoW. So he was kind of giving some backstory on like what went into that, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so this new mercenary, this is actually going to be the one mercenary that is not going to be immediately available when the patch hits on Tuesday. This one will be free for all players through the event, though. So we'll talk about that a little bit more after we go through all the Mercs and detail all the event stuff. But for her stats, she is at max a 779 caster. She is a beast, and she has all fire skills. So the first one is Blazing Song, 3 speed, fire ability, deal 10 damage, gain +3 heal power. So that is that's a line of text we have not seen before. Because I think so far, the only kind of stuff we've seen is like, you know, you can gain holy damage, but your holy damage, it doesn't scale up your healing, right? Like, it just scales up your damage. Because they're independent things. Well, I think heal power is kind of here to bridge the gap between those things. It's kind of there to give a way for healing to scale. And looking at her second ability, I think this is what makes it make a lot of sense. Inspiring Song, it's a 4 speed, 0 cooldown, restore 10 health to all friendly characters, fire ability. So when I saw this one, I was a little bit underwhelmed, right? Like, 10 health is really not a lot in the grand scheme of things. But then I thought about it a little bit more, and it's like, well, if you've got, a heal power or 2 off, you're suddenly AoEing for 13 or 16. And even if that's just across 3 characters, that's a pretty decent amount of health. I mean, your baseline of health there is the same as Anduin's Holy Nova, right? That heals 10. Unfortunately, you aren't dealing damage, but I think that's there to kind of scale up off the heal power. And the last ability, Firestorm, also involved with heal power. It is a 5 speed, 1 cooldown ability. Deal 5 damage to all enemies. Restore 5 health to all allies. And then in parentheses, damage increased by heal power. Also a fire skill. So this is kind of the first time we're seeing, looks like heal power, not only is it going to increase the amount of healing you end up doing with your kind of AoE heal there, but it also increases the damage, which is something we haven't really seen yet. So that's super cool. I'm always happy to get another character to throw into fire. Looking at her items, and she's an epic, by the way, but she will be a part of the event, so you will get her for free if you do it during the event. If you don't, if you miss out on the event, I think after a certain date, she will just be added to the pack pool. But yeah, so her items, Blazing Band, it does, Blazing Song deals 4 more damage and gives an additional +2 heal power. All right, so that's a huge upgrade. Going from 3 heal power to 5 heal power a turn is a pretty significant difference. That's the difference between it taking 3 of that attack to get to 9 heal power or 2 of it to get to 10, and you're dealing more damage while you're at it. So that seems great. Staff of Chi Ji, Inspiring Song restores 10 more health. So your baseline there is 20. So not too bad. And Flameheart Crystal, passive, after a friendly beast is healed, give them +5 health. I think that one is probably the weakest of the bunch, because if you really want to be focusing on beast healing, Anacondra kind of does that a little bit better, but she's also not a blue, and she's not a beast herself, so worth considering. But overall, I think this is a cool character. I like that there are fire abilities. I'm not sure her home is going to be in fire, because I don't think fire has room for this right now. I think fire is just doing really well with Barongeddon, Ragnaros, or even just Belinda Ragnaros. Like we've seen before, you don't need a full fire or a full anything comp, right, to make it work. Oftentimes you just need 2 or 3 good mercenaries. So while it's cool that we got more fire editions, I don't think this is going to be like super popular in fire builds necessarily, but I think it could. I think there's something to this. Like, I think that first item, Blazing Song, making it deal 14 damage and gain 5 heal power, I think that's really big. But I'm curious though, what do you guys think about this one?
I think.
No, yeah, go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think she'll go right into nature with
Nature.
first equipment and +5 heal power. Now, Furian's item, every time you do a nature spell, heal for 6 in your whole team becomes 11 on turn 1. So you're
I
healing
did
for
not
22
think about that.
with 2 nature abilities on your first turn, 22 heal on your whole team.
That's pretty nuts.
Every turn after that, you're doing another 5 heal power if you want to. And then, goes from 11 to 16 for every nature ability. So it starts getting out of control. And the other thing I was also going to compare her second item to is also Malfurion. His third ability is the 8 speed heal all of your characters for 24. Hers is, if you have that equipment, is heal 4 speed, heal them all for 20. So I think just having that equipment, and it's not even on cooldown where Malfurion's is. So just having an overall heal, 60 to everyone, and that's not counting the heal power. You do the heal power once, and it's basically equal to the cooldown 8 speed Malfurion heal. So I think those first 2 equipment are really strong, and I think she can probably find a spot in nature.
Yeah, wow. I'll be honest, I did not even think about the ramifications of healing power affecting other units. I was like tunnel visioned
Right.
on her own abilities, but throw that in with Anduin, throw that in with Malfuri, and you can do some pretty disgusting stuff if they can't really take this out. Maybe even have Cornelius there to give some protection, right? So they can't just kind of focus her down. Like it's really interesting. And then he gets buffed too, right? By the heal power. Like that's that I think that makes it a lot more, character has more potential than I thought. Thinking about
I also think, but my 2 cents too will be like I think the third equipment, that Flameheart crystal, where after a friendly beast is healed, give them +5 health. I think that could definitely do some work. I mean, we have that precedent with Anduin, right? Where whenever anybody gets healed, Anduin stacks some health. This basically says, unfortunately, it's not as degenerate where Anduin basically would triple stack the same buff, right? One Merc getting 15 health is way different than individual Mercs only getting 5. So that does feel kind of bad, but when there are a lot more summons, you've got all kinds of beasts just getting incidental things from this. I mean, obviously, Chi-Ji is also a beast themselves. That equip, I mean, that's a lot of stats. I do agree that probably the Inspiring Song healing 10 more health feels like you'd probably just rather have the one that just makes your little laser and extra heal power just do more damage and more heal power. I wouldn't be surprised if you just literally, this Merc ends up just spamming Blazing Song over and over and over. And like WizardBeast said, if you put this in nature, the only thing that I'm a little spooked of in nature is that you do sacrifice a nature ability, right? So you don't have another stack. But like, who's your third Merc that you play with this? Because then if it's like Malfurion, Chi-Ji, and somebody, we start to approach those like spooky comps that I've definitely talked a lot about, where it's like Zarella, Varden, something, right? Where it's just like double support Merc that doesn't really do anything and they don't actually really scale themselves. Like even in this case, like if you scale your healing power, that's nice. And maybe that's all you need, right? Maybe just never dying is that qualifies as scaling. And can you play Brucon along with these potentially? But now Chi-Ji isn't getting bonus from your Brucon lightning bolt damage. But this Merc, when I read the abilities, I went, this Merc sucks. Then I read the equipment and went, oh, okay. All right. So yeah, I think the bonus heal power and Malfurion is definitely going to be a really good starting point. I mean, Malfurion got a lot of help that he did not necessarily need from this set. A lot of nature spells randomly, a lot of healing, a lot of random beasts that go with nature stuff already. So Malfurion is happy. Nature House is happy.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. And one of the last characters we're looking at actually has a pretty strong skill 1 nature ability, so maybe that could be our kind of answer for the third one of this. But if I were to take a guess, I feel like it would have to be something either with lower health or something that can protect, like Cornelius, because I feel like if she ends up being good in nature, the way to stop this is just going to be to quickly kill it with Valera, right? Like it's a blue. Valera can crit it for like over half its health in one hit. So I think that might be what you're looking out for. So maybe even trying to like bait people who are doing that, you could have Localar in there as like
Localar is actually kind of a good,
just like a hedge against Valera.
Yeah,
because he's independently powerful, right? The only downside is, without opening with the second nature unit, you're losing value on the Malf heals, right? You're not getting as many of them.
One nature ability.
So you kind of want, another, even if it's not full nature unit, if they have at least one nature skill, or like the character we're going to look at has a nature skill 1, that's kind of, I think, something you'd want if you're pairing him up with Malfurion and the scaling with the healing. But yeah, I think maybe there is some potential with that last item. Like, I could see a scenario where, since Inspiring Song is a little bit faster, you could maybe get like a big AoE heal off when you have some summons out, and maybe you heal 4 or 5 units, including yourself, and all those things get plus 20 health. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I think it's a neat item. And it's one of those ones that I think is going to be really hard to evaluate until we actually see it in the game. Because I think there have definitely been items like that before where it's like, oh, this sounds good, but then you see it in game and it's like, well, this is way better than I thought it was going to be.
And we've never really had a Merc that was like solely dedicated to healing like this. Like I kind of mentioned it in the article at one point, but I was like, you're hard pressed to make a Merc with 9 different things that all deal with healing and for all of them to be terrible. Like even if you only need one to be good, and when they take the same shot at the same target over and over and over and over again with slight tweaks, one of them is probably going to be the best. And it's just a question of, is that ability good enough? But we really don't have much of a precedent for healing. Way back months ago, we talked about like, we're pretty sure healing is really slept on. Like everybody at the beginning of the game was just like, how do I kill things? How do I count to 80? How do I count to just, Thrall just does 80, just broken, just on just best Merc in the game. It's not close. And nobody understood healing. Nobody understood how good Anduin was going to be with that stacking health. Mam was not on the radar at all. Malfurion wasn't really being respected for life root staff in the same way. So this is just a cool new precedent for a new Merc that is like all in on a brand new thing. I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely after, I had the kind of similar reaction where I looked at this Merc, I was like, oh, this is trash. And then I looked at it again with the items. So I'm like, oh, this isn't quite as bad as I thought. And now even just talking to you guys, thinking about it with other combos, scaling the healing up with other units, it's probably better than I thought it was initially.
Yeah.
So
for
that's
a free Merc.
Yeah.
No Vanessa.
Yeah. Let's keep our fingers crossed we don't get any more Vanessas. Because and I'm holding out hope. Blizzard, if you're listening, buff the pirates, please. Just show them a little bit of love. They really deserve it. They're never, ever, ever going to get played in their current form. And I think it bears repeating. Never going to get played. They are awful, and they serve.
They got some help, I think.
If they get help, it's just gonna propel the only good pirate, right? I think it's gonna propel Eudora, who's like the only, in my opinion, playable pirate of the bunch. Like Edwin,
they probably just don't tweak Eudora, right? If
they leave her alone. But I thought you were saying like they'll buff them by like printing a better pirate or something to like the other. Oh, okay. That's what
I think just go back and make Sneed, just make Sneed's abilities cool, and now he's all of a sudden like, I mean, Sneed needed to not whiff. Imagine if we go back in time and Sneed was like a really good protector that could have been this mythical extra protector that we wish to have in openers or on benches and stuff, because he didn't really have any pirate synergies. Like he had a bleed, right. He had like a cleave that was good. It could have hit Valeera in stealth and stuff, disarm Valeera. That Sneed had the opportunity to be that protector we wanted, kind of was maybe supposed to be, and dropped the ball. And that, I think, it really explains a part of the protector gap that we've been stuck in potentially. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, that is. So hopefully maybe one day they can take a look back at the pirates and say, hey, Edwin deserves better, because he does. He's a really cool character, and I would love to have a reason to use him in Mercenaries. I know well, one of the viewers who likes to hang out in chat likes giving me crap because I promised pirates a long time ago when I still thought they were a viable strategy, and I tried. I really did. It's not possible. It like the most you can do to make a pirate build is throw Eudora in something. The other pirates, especially with the new mercenaries, it's just they aren't good. They're some of the worst mercs in the game. And it's
even
not
put
close.
The anti-pirate stuff on like
Rogers, who is good, who is a great unit that I've been playing more in this meta. Like she's, because of the rise of Ragnaros, Rogers has actually been fantastic for me. Because
Rogers deserves to see so much more play than they do.
Oh yeah, and she's been good. Like I've seen her in some really weird comps and getting off these like crazy speed ups for certain abilities, and she's an awesome character who I think was really underutilized due to when she came out, right? It was the Valeera launch, and Valeera just deletes blues, right? So I think a lot of people just felt like she didn't really have a slot like in the open, and she didn't really fit with the stuff on the bench. I guess some people tried her in place of Cookie for CDC, but like she felt awkward. And now I found with Ragnaros being much more common, having a unit that can scale up and just smack into him, like she does a lot of damage. Like with that first equipment, you're gaining +10 attack every time, right? Like that's a lot of damage. She gets out of control really fast. It's like Illidan kind of, but blue. So don't sleep on Rogers. She's the other one from that set that I think actually will be a very viable Merc. But we'll move on to the next one here. You want to get this one, Mullahoo?
Yes, this is my personal favorite for the new Mercs that were released. I've been pining for, I was like, just give me one more nature guy, just like one more nature ability so that we can make the nature comp a little bit more of that kind of like 6-piece set. Because that's something that I've been really hoping for, is that much like, I mean, Mam kind of did it in an even cooler way that I think was a little bit too far in the future, but I want to have more 6-piece combo decks, right? I want to have the 6 dragons deck. I want to have the 6 beast deck. I want to have the 6 humans deck. I want to have the 6 whatever. Just give me all those to start with, or just more comps that are kind of from start to finish a combo deck, a start to finish, like a narrative that is almost the polar opposite, right, of what we were saying of like the really diverse openers. I want to see the opposite, where it's like, no, my deck is sick. It tries to do this thing in particular. If you let me do it, I just go crazy. If we don't, then we get into a little cool back and forth. But I don't just have like a value backline, value opener, value cookie, right? No, it's like very concise and specific. So I was hoping for a nature Merc to help flesh that out. We kind of got it with Xuen, the epic fighter beast. So 976 max stats, not bad. 9 attack, like 8 base attack for a fighter is quite low, but we'll see why it needed to be that low, because it is never going to be 8 or 9. First ability is Equalizing Strike, called Equalizing Stike in this patch notes, but don't worry about it. Speed 7, choose an enemy. Set this Merc's attack, set Xuen's attack to 5 higher than the target, and then attack them. The thing that bothers me about this ability is it's obviously extremely slow, but this gives me what Merc was it? It's
Alex.
Kind of Alex, but in a bad way, because the problem with this is that this is a Merc that is a fighter that really wants to be attacking casters. Casters do not have high attack, right? This feels like an attack that is meant to be farming fighters, right? This feels like it should be on a protector that says, oh, you have a bunch of attack, I'm going to go even bigger than you and then punch you. Maybe that's too strong, right? Because then all of a sudden your fighter becomes outscaled by a protector, and that really shouldn't work. So this makes sense, right? At least now you still have the fighter who gets very fancy and kind of preys on the casters. So fine, sure. But the problem is that the second ability is just so much better than the first ability, and my favorite ability probably on Xuen. So Pounce, speed 4, no cooldown, borrow 5 attack from all friendly characters for 2 turns, attack an enemy. Couple things to go off right off the bat with this. Number one, that I didn't even realize until now, is this stacks. You can do pounce, and you can go steal 10. Oh. And there's an equipment that lets you steal another 5. So I'm pretty sure that this Merc can get up to like critting you for over 100 on turn 2 without even thinking. And honestly, it doesn't even need a nature equipment. It doesn't need any support whatsoever. This is just a good beatdown fighter. So that is very, very funky. Second thing to deal with Pounce. The first comp that I'm going to try this in is Malfurion, Mukla, and Xuen, where you now go Pounce and you steal attack from Malfurion. Who cares? You steal attack from Mukla. Kind of annoying. And then you steal attack from your summon. You get 15 attack instead. Go straight up to 24, and you just go crit you for 48 on turn 1. Pretty strong. 4 speed. The Valera damage numbers, right? Without the ludicrous speed advantage. So if Valera ever gets tuned down, Xuen certainly looks a lot better. And again, this is still with, there's an equipment, Celestial Chestplate, where Pounce also steals 5 attack from a random enemy. So you're getting literally plus 20 attack on turn 1 and just going 58 you. That is juicy. So that is really, really cool. The extra funky ability is its third ability called Tiger Lightning, which is nature. I believe it has a cooldown.
1 cooldown.
Stat. So the patch notes are both saying that it doesn't tell you what speed it is, but it's speed 6 and it's cooldown 1. But it's nature, so that means that Malfurion speeds them up right away on turn 2, which is really nice. Deal this Merc's attack to a random enemy, death blow, gain 5 attack, and repeat this. So we know that random sucks, but
not always.
Right? Not always. It can go around taunts. It can go around all kinds of stuff. So
stealth,
randoms can sometimes be a good thing. Stealth, exactly. Yeah, we can kill this Valera, so maybe an upside there. But what I want to do with this is, again, in this Malfurion Mukla Xuen comp, you can now go turn 2. You just go Primal Power with Mukla, pump up Xuen up to like 40 attack or whatever, and then you just go Tiger Lightning. If you hit a caster, they die, you repeat it, kill someone else, you put anybody low, kind of spread the damage around, you're getting these double kills. This is looking like a really nice ability, and it combos so well with Mukla. I mean, Mukla's stocks are skyrocketing with this set. Tons of beasts, tons of extra want for summons, tons of extra want for protectors. People are already talking about Mukla being really good, just unironically as a big stupid red guy to punch Sinestro, right? And so that, again, continues to gain equity. So I love these abilities. I think they're pretty funky. It sucks that the first ability is basically uncastable, but just straight pounce, Tiger Lightning, 2 abilities is more than I can ask for. And then when we go to the equipment, again, unfortunately, I think there's kind of a best equipment by a long shot. Spear Xuen says, Equalizing Strike sets this Merc's attack to an additional +4. I don't know why you wouldn't just be casting Pounce basically always. And especially when Celestial Chestplate, that other equipment, says Pounce also steals 5 attack from a random enemy. That's basically the exact same thing as stealing from Equalizing Strike. Sure, you don't get to kind of calculate it in the same way, but why wouldn't you just Pounce a caster instead of Equalizing Striking them, right? And so that feels a little bit awkward, and I'm definitely trying to take Celestial Chestplate. Charged Gauntlet says Tiger Lightning gets an additional +4 attack, but yet again, Pounce is just better. This is actually the furthest from what we've been praising nonstop, right? Of saying like all these equipment are so cool. They all are a different spec. They're all like really asking you to combine it with this guy. It's really versatile. No, Xuen really feels like their 3 equipment are from the kind of 2021 design where it's medium, great, the same thing but worse as the good one. And there's one clear front runner from the equipment, in my opinion, and it's Celestial Chestplate. Not close. You literally might just go pounce, and call it a day. So regardless, I still think this Merc is really, really cool. Cool fighter. Nature kind of wanted a fighter. Now you don't have to play Samuro if you don't want. You can basically replace Samuro with this and Nature Samuro if you want, things like that. You can steal attack from Brucon and Malfurion. Sure. Now you have double Nature Spell, which is fine. You have the stacking Lightning Bolt damage to combo with your Tiger Lightning. You can start getting some Muddy Footings in there instead of just a taunt from Mukla. This Merc is sweet, and it's really cool art. Spectral Tiger, funny meme lore in WoW TCG and stuff like that. So no, I'm stoked. I was really excited to see this Merc. Goes into all kinds of things I want to mess with.
Very cool. Yeah, no, that was the first thing I was thinking of, is just like, hey, it's kind of like fire, right? Like nature has been kind of absent of a green. Like, yeah, we have Anaconda, but Anaconda hasn't really seen play in a while. Maybe now with more beasts.
Now maybe it can, right?
But like I feel like nature did kind of have that like a little bit of that missing link of they'd really appreciate a good green, kind of just like how fire needed a good green. Then we got Belinda. And now with this, I could really see, like you said, Malf, Brucon, and Xuen, like you start scaling up with your lightning bolt, you keep yourself sustained with the Malf healing, and then you get that pounce off, no cooldown, so you can turn 1 pounce, which is really important because the other ability's on 1 speed cooldown. So you just do that once, you get a little bit of nature scaling, and then boom, you could set up for a kill with the Tiger Lightning. Obviously, random does make that a little bit harder to pull off, but even if it doesn't hit what you want, you're still going to deal a lot of damage, right?
Yeah.
And I think the first ability isn't quite as bad as you think it might be. Like, I don't think it's good. I'm not saying it's a good ability because you're right. Obviously, the fighter wants to go after casters, right? Casters have typically lower attack. So, but you also have to remember 5 higher, right? That's not terrible. Like, casters aren't that. There are a few that are really low, like at 6 or so. I think 6 is like the lowest, right, when maxed out. But some of them are higher than that at like 7 or 8. And add an additional 5 onto that, that's still like 12, 13 damage. Is it a ton of damage? No. But like, I do like the versatility with it, because you could theoretically punish a unit that is trying to scale itself really big. Even though this ability is pretty slow, there are ways you could combo it to get around that, right? If you wanted to try and snipe something down, like we were talking about Rogers. What if you just use Rogers skill 2 on it, speed him up for next turn, and you just ram into something that has 30 attack, 40 attack? It's interesting. Like there's or Karen's endurance aura. Now, do I think that's super likely to happen? Probably not. But we've seen more attack scaling, I think, in this current meta than in most of the other metas that have existed so far in Mercenaries. So I think it's cool to have an ability like this, even, and it's like, I think it's good that there's a little bit of a downside to it, and it's not all like purely upside.
Yeah, you can just have 3 like insane abilities.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. I mean, it's also called Equalizing Strike, and it explicitly does not equalize. There's weird stuff about that one. But again, is it just like the Merc is probably just like disgusting if it has 3 really good abilities and a good equipment? So like, if it was a legendary, right, now all of a sudden you have your 3rd ability be really good. This drop also kind of tracks to we've got Longshin with 3 really good abilities for the most part. The legendary has 3 good abilities. The epic has 2 good abilities. The rares have 1 to 2 good abilities. Like, this is kind of now matching the rarity power level, which the last drop really didn't have, where Sinestro was just like 3 really good abilities essentially. Localar was 2 really good abilities, and they were both rares. So I don't know. This seems like it's maybe going back to kind of normal power scaling for the rarities. That maybe the last set was just an oddball out.
Yeah. What did you think about this one, WizardBeast?
I really love the pounce ability. That's my favorite.
Oh,
and I've
strong.
already thought,
Mm-hmm.
of a comp. Just imagine opening up with him, King Muko with the Big Brother, and then say Belinda with the Fire Elemental. So then you don't have to worry about the attack for that. And if you have the equipment, then it's stealing 25 extra damage turn 1 and going up to 34 attack at a 4 speed that you can also just target a blue and crit right away for 68. That just seems crazy to me. And then, repeat it again next turn. And I feel like that's just going crazy. You can just be spamming pounce over and over and have this thing, as you were saying, hidden over 100. But yeah, same with the equipments. I think the Celestial Chestplate is by far the best.
Mm-hmm.
The gauntlets, the extra 4 attack, can kind of see it. The spear, not at all, really. I think an extra 4 isn't really worth it. For equipment, just to give you, basically saying +4 attack in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Literally all 3 equipment basically say +4, except one is on a better, it's not even +4, it's literally 5. And it steals it from a bad guy, and it's on your good ability. Like, it really does not feel close. That's weird.
I think that will be definitely the best equipment that everyone will just instant lock in. So, but definitely a very cool mercenary. It's nice, even though the other 2 abilities are basic, just to have like the nature text on that last ability, add a little bit more flavor. Now it can fit in nature comp. I think it's really cool.
Makes it 3 speed with the Malfurion on turn 2, which is not nothing. That's like, you're now acting fast compared to a non-Valera meta. And you can even stack the lightning bolt from Brucon before it. They're both at 6 speed, so you can guarantee the extra 3 lightning damage. That's not nothing.
Yeah,
that's cool. You could even you could also stack chain lightning if you get some chain lightning kills, or 1 chain lightning kill to make your odds better at hitting or just weakening stuff with chain lightning, and then you have better odds at, kind of like with Rag, right, where if you can weaken the whole board enough, Die Insect just cleans up, especially against a bunch of greens. So maybe there's something to that, right? Like, you both being at 6 speed could be really good.
Yeah, chain lightning and tiger lightning just going hand in hand.
Yeah, right. they got the chain in one hand and the tiger in the other. Yeah, it's a cool design though. I definitely like it. I'm glad beasts are getting more support. Really curious to see what kind of stuff people do with beasts, because for anyone who wasn't around at the beginning of Mercenaries, beasts was a comp, like, the Rexar, King Crush, Muckla with Muckla's big brother buffing up all your beasts. It was a very real thing in the beginning, but eventually people found strategies to beat it, and it kind of just fell out of favor. So I'm curious if we're going to see something like that, where maybe people try and use the new beasts with Rexar for that additional stat buff. Could be kind of interesting. There's a lot of different stuff you can do with it, because, I mean, we basically, I don't remember how many we had before, but we didn't have a ton of beasts, more of them than some other tribes, but there still was far from a critical mass of beasts, let alone playable and good ones. So it's like, it's interesting to see if we might get like another version of the beast comp coming back up again after all this time.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, this whole patch is basically just dragons and beasts, right? Like completely juice up two strategies, like we said, to having just your pick of the litter now, from something that was like, fine, I have to play Crush, have to play Mokla, have to play Rexar. If you want to play dragons, you just couldn't. And now you have lots of options for both. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. Do we want to move on to the next one? Yeah, you want to take this one, WizardBeast?
Sure. So the next one is Niuzao, which is a rare protector, 1080 for stats. So for a protector, it's got okay for damage. Still pretty healthy, around 80. Then for its abilities, first ability is 7 speed, headbutt, attack an enemy. If it has higher attack, then this Merc deals 16 damage to it instead. So it's extra 6 damage if it's a little bit higher. It's okay, 7 speed, a little bit slow, not too heavy on damage against a green. Second ability is Bullish Fortitude, 2 speed, 1 cooldown. Gain taunt, and your other characters take 5 less damage for 2 turns. Now, that I think can be very powerful.
That's a lot of turns.
Because we've seen Cornelius's equipment reduce damage by 3, and just how much more survivability he has because of that.
Yeah.
So think of this against, Lokar has been so strong with everything doing just a little bit of damage, reducing 5 on every hit now. That can be pretty good, and even for 2 turns. And I wonder if it is like Malfurion, where it sticks to him, or if it goes over to the next turn if he dies. That's something we'll have to see when it comes out. Because if it goes over to the next turn, where even if he dies, I think that would be very strong.
Yeah, I didn't think about that actually. That definitely sucks if you are just gonna if you can just get lit up and lose the entire buff. My instinct is that it is on
the characters.
Him.
Yeah. I don't know.
Especially when it says gain taunt. Like gain taunt and your other characters take 5 less damage.
Yeah,
there is a way to read that where it's like add both, stick 2 of these stickers onto this guy, or 1 sticker that says quotes taunt and your other characters take 5 less damage for 2 turns, end quotes, right? So my guess is it probably is stuck to this guy. It might be. But
the first ability is worded weird too, though, and I wanted to see how you guys interpreted that, because I talked about this with someone. So the way it's worded and formatted, it sounds like it's like, all right, you attack, and then, if it has higher, you deal the 16. But I think it's just poorly worded. I think the way it might work is and this is very kind of unintuitive if it does work this way. I think it checks the attack, and it's like a replacement effect. So I think the 16 would be in place of actually swinging in, because it just doesn't make sense otherwise. Yeah, but like the wording does not make that clear, I don't think, because like it does say instead, but the attack an enemy is just like attack an enemy, period. Like usually when we have a period separating the two things, that is indicative of the order, but it's weird because we have a replacement effect after that. So I'd imagine the replacement effect still works, but I think the wording on this is very, very weird.
I think it just means like it first hits the enemy, and then before the damage registers, it checks, and then it does the damage. So if that would be higher than the 16, I think that's why they maybe put the period.
Maybe.
So it's like, hey, you attack it before the damage registers, it checks, and then it's like, okay, it's not higher, does the 10. If it's higher, then does 16. That's the only way I could see why they worded that. If not, it is worded very weirdly.
Yeah, I just think it could be a little bit better formatted to make it a little bit more clear, because I think the way it currently stands, it could also be interpreted as you're still hitting into them, you're just dealing more damage, which I think would be awful. That would make this character way, way worse.
Like we still take the retaliation damage?
Yeah, that's the thing
Yeah.
that I think is unclear. Like, I think we're right in that it would replace it. I just think if that does work that way, it should maybe be worded a little bit differently or formatted a little differently to make it clear that you're not actually attacking it.
Yeah, and if for some reason it is deal 10 and then it does additional 16, that would make that ability a lot better, but I don't think so for any reason.
I don't think it's going to be it either.
Do that, I think. It wouldn't be a rare that just does infinity damage, I think.
We do have local R. So
yeah.
And that's pretty close.
Yeah, my instinct when I read this guy was that the attack an enemy is just there because you have to say, like, all right, player, pick somebody.
Yeah.
There's no real, like,
that could be it.
Target an enemy language in the game really yet. And so they might just have to hedge and say attack. That kind of makes the most sense to me. And even with like headbutt flavoring, it's like, nah, my head, I got big horns, big stupid head. Like if I can actually headbutt you, that's not going to hurt me at all. It's going to hurt you a lot. So my guess is that it just says, look at them. If you're bigger, then do 16 and take no retaliation damage. I think if
they're bigger, not if you're bigger.
Yeah.
If they have higher attack.
I have a fortitude though, of whether or not that goes on to him or the other guys. And then the last ability is also like really weird.
Yeah, for the last ability, it is Blessing of the Ox, 3 speed, 1 cooldown. Each time a friendly character is damaged this turn, give them Divine Shield. And this is an arcane ability also.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know about this last ability.
Divine Shield Tribal coming 2023? Yeah. Maybe?
Some friendly characters damage this turn, give them Divine Shield. That is... Can you imagine a world where, unfortunately this has 1 cooldown, but can you imagine a world where you make that 0 speed with Valera and you just swing in and take the damage and you trigger it? Oh no, you can't trigger it on... You could trigger it on your other guys because it'd be 0 speed, so you could do this first and then swing in fast with 2 others and then they get Divine Shield after to protect from like AoE. I don't know. It's weird.
No, that's not the worst. Even just bringing Headbutt down to 3 speed or whatever with Valera is like kind of okay.
Yeah. I mean, definitely get to protect your Valera and other Mercs, then 5 less damage as they're swinging in. That can be good, but I'm hoping it doesn't come to that where there's more protection for Valera and stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I didn't even think about the fact that you can...
It's like Trigor.
Forced attacking, right? Yeah, it's just like you attack, take retaliation damage, and then get the Divine Shield. That's actually a lot better than I thought.
Yeah, because you don't have to have your opponents play into it or play around it. You which is usually the sign of a bad ability, right? If your opponent has to play into it, it's probably not that good of a skill. We've seen similar stuff like that in Constructed with different cards. It's like, but if it's something you can actually advance your own game plan with by doing it, and you don't have to worry about what your opponent's doing, it suddenly becomes a lot better.
Yeah, I think the equipment looks pretty good, though, for the abilities. I think it definitely turns up some of the abilities a notch. For the first one being Bullish Belt, Bullish Fortitude, so the second ability, reduces damage taken by 5 more, but has then cooldown of 2, which 10 damage reduction can be a lot. And I think this equipment can be one of the stronger ones, depending on how the second ability rolls out. If it is not stuck to this character, and it's like we say a sticker note on the other 2, if you pull them out on a later turn and do that, and your other 2 characters take 10 damage less on each of them, that is a lot of damage reduction, especially against AoEs or multiple hits like local R and other things. that can be, I think, very strong. So for protection wise, I think he's not as great as an opener so far. To me, like his other abilities can be decent, but they're both on cooldown. So, turn 1 doesn't seem like he's the best to open with. But this other equipment, Helm of Niuzao, passive -2 damage.
Oh, it's a minus?
Yeah, I didn't notice that either.
-2 and +16. So makes him really bulky. Goes up to 96 life, which is very healthy.
Boy.
And then 8 damage, which then does help his first ability, so it can activate more.
Oh.
And not just that, after an enemy attacks this Merc, deal 5 damage to them. So if it's a green running into this, if he has taunt up, an extra 10 damage.
That's not bad.
It's not too bad.
That adds up. Like against some like Valera, like GBT, they're swinging a bunch. Like that's. I mean, it's not a lot, but also I did not realize that was a minus. I 100% read that as a plus on the video I put out today about that.
To me, the after an enemy attacks it, deal 5 damage is just like, again, like 2022 text, right? Like the -2 +16 would have already been an equipment on a Merc that was released in October, because the -2 is an upside, quote unquote, with Headbutt. But then it's just like it has a whole other line of text just stapled onto it, because that's kind of where we are now with equipment, I think. But I do like that equipment a lot. +16 health is not to be trifled with.
Yeah, it can be very strong.
It's a lot of health.
Starting off with 96 life is a lot. And then, if you have a cookie in the comp, then you're over 100 right there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
also it's wild.
Yeah, also with it being a beast too, there's a lot more beast energy, so
true.
Having that stick around other heals and things, if you have maybe a Rexar or something, buff it up then too, and it has taunt, so things are running into it, they're taking a lot of damage from it, and then extra 5 on top. So I think it can be used just as a massive shield while protecting your other mercenaries.
It would be funny to see with this. You could pair this up with Cornelius. And Cornelius could do a Blessing of Sacrifice to redirect the damage after he takes even less damage from the Fortitude. And you could just make some really hard to kill reds that just keep healing.
0.
Like, Cornelius already takes 3 less. He'll be taking 5 more less for the next 2 turns. And then you could literally juggle Bullish Fortitude and Blessing of Sacrifice to keep redirecting every other turn and healing between. Like, that maybe it's a big meme, but like that could be kind of funny.
You need some hyperscaling Merc to go with it, or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Well, if you added Mr. Smite in, then with that much damage reduction, no one would take damage, and he would one-shot a whole team.
Is it just better than Rikara?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think just go in and he would just kill everything. I mean, actually, the combo would be doable turn 2. You could do a full board wipe.
Yeah, just like with Rikara, yeah.
Yeah, because you could do Fortitude then for your other mercenaries, and then have Cornelius equipment on, and then Blessing the Sacrifice, the Smite. So then your Cornelius is taking 8 less damage on turn 2, and when you're running into other mercenaries, they don't have normally super high damage. At most, let's say like maybe 13, 14 on some of the fighters if they don't have any stacks, and that's only doing 6 if they have that high. If it's anything less than 8, it's not doing damage.
Yeah.
So
that's,
wow. Could be combo.
I didn't think about Mr. Smite. That is a cool one.
Yeah, that was not my first one to come to mind, but I might have to try it now.
Mercenaries Dream.
Yeah,
we're gonna be doing this, but like just 100 times more once we have even 20 more Mercs. It's gonna be great.
I know, it's just more and more comps coming up every single batch.
Yeah.
And then for its final equipment is Talesman of the Ox. Passive, after a friendly character loses Divine Shield, give them +6 health.
Oh wait,
so
the patch notes say this Merc gains +6 health. Is the PDF different?
Yeah, the PDF says give them +6.
I would trust the PDF.
I would too.
Yeah, because the patch notes has been off on a couple things of like one ability of speed and cooldown, which that's like an Anduin ring, but for other people. So if you're giving them Divine Shield, which I mean, if you have a character, say like Sam or Thrall double attacking, so they hit in, get Divine Shield, and then they hit in again, which box damage gives 6 life, and then if they get hit that turn, another Divine Shield.
Mm-hmm.
So it can maybe make some things work with it.
Not too bad. I mean, you get your Uther in there for the death rattle, give everyone divine shields. You get some Tyrians in there, some Kings. We got
Tyrion's what I'd want with that for sure. If you want to do the divine shield strategy, I just don't. I think that's a pretty weak payoff for a very fringe ability, right? Like it makes sense with the third ability on the character because that's kind of the first way aside from Tyrion Deathblow that we have to give multiple divine shield, which feels like that's what you'd want to be doing with a ability like this. But 6 health feels like a really small payoff for something that's already kind of a niche scenario. Like maybe it'll be less niche with the Blessing of the Ox skill, but at least how things have currently been, I'm not sure that this really does much in terms of like you just get 6 health. 6 health isn't very much if you're not like getting it over and over and over again. So I feel like there are other ways, especially given that it's a beast, and a lot of these are beasts. I feel like there's just better ways to stack your health without having to jump through hoops.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, cool. Overall, I think the first 2 equipment I think both of them have chance at seeing play.
Yeah.
Third one will have to be, you'd have to make a Divine Shield deck, I think. Or something around it. That one ability wouldn't be good enough just to have a whole equipment go towards it, I think.
Yeah, maybe for the future, right? Like maybe that's one of those abilities where, I mean, they even said this with Localar, how with his elemental ability for the extra passive elemental health, that was also added to kind of help out elementals we get in the future because they said they have a long list of elementals they can add in the game from the lore. So that's one of those abilities where maybe it's not seeing a ton of play now because his item 2, scaling up the frost to punish the speed, is better in this meta. I don't think it means the other one's a bad item. It's just one of those items where we probably need to see a bit more of that tribe get printed for it to realize it's like full potential, right? Because right now, even if you wanted to, you can't run a full elemental team. But maybe a couple months from now, we'll have some more elementals, and that'll be all different. And all of a sudden, plus 20 health across 5 or 6 units is pretty good. So it'll be interesting to see. Feels like one of those skills, though, It feels like one of those ones that's there for maybe the future, not so much for what we're going to be immediately getting right now. But do we want to move on to our last one here?
Yeah, hit us. Who's our last Merc, zombies?
All right.
One more dragon.
This is probably my favorite of the bunch.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
this is my least favorite, actually. So
really interesting.
I think, yeah.
So this is Yu'lon, Dragon, Protector, 8 attack, 85 health. That's a lot of health. That's quite a bit for a Protector. And looking at his abilities here, first ability, Jade Gust, 10 speed, so super slow. No cooldown, deal 20 damage to an enemy. If they attacked this turn, deal 40 damage instead. Nature. This is like one of the main reasons I feel like they put that, even though he's a blue versus a red, this is why one of the reasons I think they put that equipment on Longzhen for the nature resistance, because this is 40 damage is a ton. 40 damage, you do that on a Sinestra, I think you have to be max and have a cookie to live. Like that one hits Sinestra, and it goes slower than all of her abilities.
Though, which kind of sucks.
Oh yeah, it's attacked. It's not act. That's right. Yeah.
Mercenaries juke. Yeah.
She could attack, but she probably won't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's still So, Good. Thank you for pointing that out, though, because I remembered that when it launched, but or when I first read it. But going over it now, I was just thinking used ability. But yeah, no, it is attacked. Important distinction. So this is bigger on punishing units that do attack, but we have a lot of fighters that attack. So I feel like this is a good way of maybe dealing some damage to the fighters. Like this. The only thing that sucks is, we can't hit Valyria in stealth. However, skill 2 might provide us some answer to that. So, Jade Flame Buffet, 1 speed, 1 cooldown, block taunt and stealth for all other characters for 2 turns. Give your characters plus 5 health or plus 10 health. Fire skill. So the first thing I will say about this is I think this should have been 0, not 1. Yeah. I think printing this at 1 is a mistake, and they should have made it 0. I'm happy we're seeing a way to shut down stealth in particular that's been asked for a while now, since Valyria was printed. And so I'm happy something like this is being experimented with. And there are some fringe ways you could speed this up. You could use Baron Geddon's skill 1 on turn 1 and make this a 0 speed ability. Finally get some value off that 1 fire increase. But we know that's probably not going to be the case, especially because you cannot use this on turn 1. That's another thing. If you didn't want to make it 0 speed, maybe, well, no cooldown's kind of rough because you can just infinitely lock people out of stealth and taunt, so you probably don't want that. But it is 2 turns, right?
Not bad.
It's not a bad.
If you have to spend your big stupid dragon to just sit there and go like, I can see you. I can see you. Like, okay.
It's also giving all your characters
right,
though,
and
plus
that's
10.
the real problem. Is like you'd have to get rid of the 10 health buff, but that feels like such a tack on ability. Where they were just like, how do we balance it? We'll just give him some health.
Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not like insane. 10 health is better than 5 though, right? Like a lot of the other ones we're seeing like 5 or 6, so 10's not terrible. Neat ability. I like the idea. I also like that it does more than just stealth. It makes it much more, and I'm happy the health is on there because, I mean, you probably won't use it if you're not running up against, taunt or stealth, but maybe there's some weird scenario that the extra health going off at 1 speed ends up saving you or something from a cookie snipe or something, right? Who knows? 1 speed is still powerful. It's just, unfortunately, with the Valyria sped up, unless you have a Valyria of your own, in which case you're probably still flipping coins because you'll have multiple 0s. I'm happy they made this ability, but I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly what we need to shut things down. But I'm going to reserve judgment on that till I actually see it in the game, because abilities like this I think are hard to fully judge until you see it in like the full context. The last ability, though, Enveloping Mist. Gain taunt this turn and +3 nature damage. Repeat for each other friendly dragon. So
Triple taunt.
Yeah. Triple taunt. And triple the nature damage. One of the first no, he's all arcane. Okay, so are there any dragons
Brightwing.
with Brightwing's the only nature dragon, right? I think Sinestra's shadow, Alex's fire,
fell and Rathian's fell, I think.
So this might be something that needs more support before this makes more sense, because I feel like there's got to be a reason for this, like other than, I mean, I'm happy it has taunt. We need more taunt units. It does make me a little sad it's a cooldown though. I feel like this ability probably could have gotten away with not being a cooldown, just to give us another 2-speed taunt on turn 1. Kind of would have liked that. And I don't think the scaling would really get out of control, because there are no dragons to synergize like that right now with nature payoff. Other than, I mean, he obviously has a nature ability in his first skill, but I think you need more than that. More than just like a one button nuke here to be effective with it. But that is arcane.
For nature bench, though.
Yeah, it's possible, but then he has to survive, right? Like, at that point, why aren't you just scaling with your Brucon if you're just getting +3? You're dealing damage then too. So, not sure how I feel about this ability. The thing I do like about this character, though, is they have abilities in 3 different spell schools. They have a nature, they have a fire, and they have an arcane. And I think that's sweet because even if for some reason he doesn't necessarily slot into something on this release, I think he will at some point. There's got to be a reason for that third ability. I think we're gonna, like, when Ysera comes out, Ysera's probably gonna be a dragon with nature abilities. It just makes sense, right? But let's look at the items here. First one, Jade Fire Spear. Jade Flame Buffet gives an additional +5 health. So, yeah, that really doesn't make
15 instead of 10.
It's okay, but like we mentioned, the health isn't really why you're trying to use that ability a lot of the time. The next one, Serpent Pendant. Enveloping Mist gives an additional +3 nature damage, so that makes it a little bit better. So you're no longer
nature damage.
You're no longer the same as a Brucon, right? You're getting double.
+18? +18 nature damage in some cases. That is stupid.
Well, yeah, if you have the Mercs for it. If you have the dragons.
If you're just opening like or this guy and literally like this guy, Sinestra Brightwing, right? Mm-hmm. And you just go question mark on turn 1, punch you, Brightwing, do whatever, and then just go Enveloping Mist, Brightwing crits for what? Like 60 or something on turn 2, which is kind of cool. That's kind of cute.
I think
also Brightwing's heal for 18 is nature. So if you're getting +18, then you're doubling technically her nature heal all of your characters.
Does nature damage affect healing? Yeah, it totally does, right? Malfurion gets affected by Brucon.
Oh wait, maybe damage. I think it. Maybe not.
I'm not sure. I don't. No, it doesn't affect the healing.
Never mind. Take that back.
Would be nice.
Brightwing still goes crazy.
Yeah.
The Brightwing lasers.
Yeah. I think that what's her face? Chi-Ji is the only way we have of scaling up healing right now.
The heal power.
Yeah, so it's a neat one. Again, if we get some more dragons, I actually tried to make a Brightwing Sinestra comp work. It's rough.
Mm-hmm. It's rough. Sinestra opening, or
I've tried it opening. I've tried it on the bench. Sinestra is an awful opener, though. She does not feel good as an opener. You have to like pray your opponent is not opening with a red, or she just gets rolled over, and it's.
No, I can see that.
So, but that being said, there have been matchups where I've opened with my full bench with Sinestra because I knew they were going to know my opener, and it worked out. So they're like fringe case scenarios where it can kind of work, but like as your main opener for a comp, I don't think Sinestra is it, unless some really absurd support is printed, and I don't think we got that in this set quite yet. But let's look at the last item. Pearl of Yulon, passive, your other dragons take 4 less damage. This is probably the best passive here, especially if you're going with the dragon build. That's really strong. I mean, we've seen how strong it is on just Cornelius protecting himself. This is a whole extra damage less, and if you have 2 dragons, it's on both of them permanently. Imagine you start stacking that with the character we just looked at, with giving them even less damage for 2 turns. Like there's some pretty big shenanigans you can kind of do with this damage reduction, I think. And who knows if it's going to be any good or not, because obviously you need some kind of payoff. You can't just try and prevent damage and hope that wins, right? You have to actually advance and deal with your opponent's board. But I think it's interesting, and I'm happy to see more dragon support. We mentioned it before. Really surprised, no Onyxia. To be honest, we got all Celestials, Pandaria stuff, and I think that's because of the event, which we'll talk about just a minute here. But I would not be surprised if maybe in the next batch in March, whenever it is, we get Onyxia, because I feel like they just had a lot of options for who they could put in. And if you remember, the last time we got a mini set, the two were very linked. We got the mini set was pirates, we got pirate mercenaries. This time, it feels like kind of the complete opposite. It feels like this isn't linked to the mini set at all, and it's more linked to the event we're going to be having in Mercenaries the week following the release. So it's kind of, it was not what I think anybody really expected with all the hints we had about, the Onyxia stuff. And I think it would make a lot of sense to put her in. So maybe we'll end up seeing her in the kind of last, or not the last, but the next batch of Mercenaries before we get into, the rotation in the new Hearthstone year in April. That's what I'm hoping for, at least, because I really would like to see Onyxia and just more of the dragon aspects in general, because I think dragons are awesome. They've needed more support. They're getting it. Sinestra was a very powerful one. We got two more in this set, one of which at least looks powerful. I think Yu'lon could be good too, but maybe he doesn't have the full support to get there right now, but won't really know till we fully test it. Do you guys have any final thoughts on Yu'lon here?
Yeah, I am a little worried about him actually with Sinestra in endgame, because if you take the passive where your dragons do 4 less damage, and then you just taunt and you're giving your Sinestra even more health, and she's taking even less damage, so it's just scaling her healing potential, because a lot of times when she's doing that 50 heal or more at 2 speed, most of the time she's over healing.
Oh yeah.
So if you're increasing her max life, even once, just
That's cute.
getting it up there, and then extra -4, and she's already having with the other equipment -5, that's -9 on her, so you can't burst her down, you have to go through him. And then it gives her time to set up more of that rotation of damage and heal, then massive heal, and then she's having more life. I'm a little worried about seeing that in the end game, of how strong that could be, of just having a wall that protects her and just keeps her alive, basically.
That could be the new dragon comp, right? Is like literally something like Yu'lon, Brightwing, Alexstrasza. You actually get value out of enveloping mist on your Brightwing. Your Brightwing is now pumping your Sinestra, which is cool. You have multiple guys that let your Sinestra live. Whoever dies first, you just bring in a Sinestra, hit Twilight Extinction, and then start just trying to 1v9 from there. That could be a deck. That could be fine. Yeah. You can still even have Cookie in there too for like the really degen health bonuses if you want, and you just have a 6th Merc for literally whatever you want.
Throw another fighter in for even more buffs.
Sure, just go deep. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I obviously he lends himself to being dragon synergy and stuff. But I didn't think about too much of the on the bench Sinestra stuff and how you could actually get her even higher up. The damage prevention is incredibly relevant, because most of the time how Sinestra is getting killed, from what I see, is a big ass snowball from Localar, which crits her for over 100, or Thrall, which basically does the same thing. But both of those, Thrall more than Localar, are very vulnerable to getting kind of weakened by this damage reduction, and especially Localar's first skill, since it's done in chunks. Each of those chunks, it's a smaller amount, so you could prevent a lot of that damage, right? Your dragons take 4 less. Well, if Localar has only gained 1 more spell power, they're hitting you for 7 before critting, so that goes down to 3. So instead of critting you for 14, they're critting you for 6. That's pretty big difference in the damage you're taking. And local R has definitely been one of the primary Sinestra counters that I've seen a lot of. People just being smart about keeping him on the bench when possible. If they're expecting a Sinestra, seems to work out pretty well, especially if you're running other Frost units to kind of help scale that up. So it's interesting. That's a good point, though. I wasn't thinking about a comp quite like that, but now I kind of want to try it. And I love his art, top tier art, really good art.
The art on Yu'lon super slaps.
Yeah,
the crazy like stylized cloud one is probably my favorite.
Yeah, they do. That's one thing I have no complaints about Mercenaries, is they do a really nice job with the art in this game. I don't know where it was from. Someone posted on Twitter, but there was art of Lady Prestor, I think, and she and it was from Mercenaries art for her. So I imagine she'll be a character we get at some point. But it was awesome art. Like, it was really good art. And it was the first time I'd seen it, but I guess it's on one of the wikis. But she's not a character in the game right now. And it's funny, weirdly enough, her, I guess, data mine stuff was actually Valera's abilities. One of the pages for her, it says her name, but the abilities are all Valera. So it's one of those things where data mining information doesn't really get us much of the picture what's actually there. So you always got to take that with a grain of salt in some cases. But those are all the new Mercs. Definitely excited for these. I'm happy dragons are getting support. I'm happy beasts are getting support. I think demons and murlocs could use a little bit more love. But maybe in the next drop or two, something will change with that. I do want to mention the event, though. Mention that really quick. So we talked about how Chi-Ji is going to be a free mercenary, and they're actually doing an event. So I'm just going to read it off as it is on the site. So, new limited time event starting February 22nd. That is a week from this coming Tuesday. Mercenaries will be hosting its first ever limited time event. Complete a chain of 10 exciting event tasks to harness the power of Chi-Ji and strengthen the August Celestials. 2 new tasks will be available on each of the first 5 days of the event, but you have until March 8th to complete all 10 tasks. Complete all 10 tasks to earn Chi-Ji Epic Mercenary card, a portrait for her, and over 1,000 total mercenary coins for the new mercenaries. This is sweet. This is our first event in Mercenaries, and I know we weren't really sure what to expect with this, but overall I'm pretty happy with it. The only little complaint I'd have with this is I think it's a little weird we have to wait a week after the patch. I mean, we'll obviously have stuff to do because we're getting the other 4 mercenaries, but I do think it's a little bit strange that it comes like a week later that we get this stuff, but I'm guessing the main reason for that is because they want people to, be able to play other modes with the new cards, which you obviously have immediate access to and don't have to grind up by doing a lot of PvE stuff like we do in Mercenaries. I didn't notice the over 1,000 total mercenary coins. I just noticed the 1,000 first time on reading that, so that's kind of nice.
1,002.
Yeah, probably right. But literally anything helps with leveling these new characters, and if we could see more events like this in the future that make it a little bit less painful to level your characters up, that would be a very, very welcome addition. I thought it was just going to be something way simpler than this. I honestly thought we were just going to get some kind of quest chain for packs like we got for the regular Lunar New Year with the other modes recently, that legendary quest line. But this is cool. I'm curious what you guys think about this. You want to start off, Mullahoo?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it on stream today too, but the fact that it's probably not 1,000 coins per mercenary.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
That you're only getting, maybe we'll average it to 200, 250 coins per merc. Like you said, that's nice, but that's still half of an ability, right? It's still not really close. Literally, if they gave us 1,000 per merc, now we're talking, right? Now that's actually like a legitimate amount that is still not even close, right? The fact that 1,000 is still not even close, and
It's about a third, bit under a third.
That would still be
right?
like a very helpful boon. Got us thinking and talking about, like, I don't know why we didn't think about this before, but theoretically, would it solve your complaints about excess coins if every merc that came out from now until the end of time, there was a quest chain that let you get 1,000 coins for that merc? In my opinion, I don't even know why we didn't think about that. But
in addition to like tasks, you mean?
Yeah. Just then there's all the normal stuff, but they just throw coins at you for the new mercenaries. Honestly, that might be the easiest like extra coins fix, where Blizzard just says like, sorry, you've got too many coins. Unlucky. The reason people want to use the extra coins is because they feel as if they're a waste. Obviously, we need the duplicate protection, blah, 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 for like packs need to stop trolling us. But if it was just a matter of like, people just want to level up their new mercs faster. They just wish that they could use their old coins to make the new mercs better. But if the new mercs just got easier, we might not even have to get a coins fix. And so that's like a new twist to that story that I want to kind of plant in people's minds, because that could be the easiest, most kind of UI friendly way to get this result. Even though it's not what we were asking for, even though there will still be a number that is there that is dumb looking for a long time, they can use that to convert them into packs later or portraits later, or you can buy who knows what. It literally doesn't matter. But that is something that I want to toss in. So those are my 2 cents on this. But otherwise, I think it's really cool that we have an event. Really cool that they're throwing stuff at us. Honestly, I kind of like that they're slow rolling Chi-Ji in that way too, where it's like, all right, you can't get him unless you go as fast as possible, and then you still have 5 days, right? And so like forcing people to slow down, I think, is actually a good thing when it comes to mercenaries, because people think that they can just go as fast as they want, and they can, but it leads to burnout, it leads to just frustration. And so in a way, I kind of like the hand holding here.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think, WizardBeast?
Yeah, no, I like that they're finally having an event for mercenaries. And it's been out for a little over 3 months. And I think it's about time to kind of have an event going in. And this is, I think, a cool event to start it off. They have a little quest chain going in. They got all of the mercenaries this time are featured around it. Before, it would always be, here we get 3 from this and like 2 from this, where this is the whole batch is around this event. So I think that's really cool. And, always getting free things is nice. Free mercenary portrait, 1,000 extra coins, even if it is 200, it's like we were saying, not the best. It gets you halfway in on ability, but it's better than nothing. I'll take what I can get for it. So
yeah,
I'm still happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I felt in a little bit in regards to the heroic change, because aside from just a gameplay perspective of having a reason to do the heroics, we also get like an additional 50 or 60 coins from having an extra coin reward for Task 7. So it's not much, but it helps. I believe total number of coins to go from absolutely nothing to fully maxed out Merc, I think, is 2,700. So 1,000 coins would go a long way in helping towards that.
Many hours.
Yeah, that'd be a ton, because right now, I think when you finish doing all your tasks and stuff, you're somewhere around 1,000 or a bit over 1,000 or something short. I don't know the exact numbers and whatnot, but it's somewhere around there, maybe a bit above that, but somewhere near there. And so any way to make it easier to get coins for the new mercs, so it stops feeling punishing for opening packs and trying to get them in like bounties, or it's a very super frustrating experience. I decided to count up my extra coins for funsies. I have over 200,000 extra coins, which is absurd. So, that's one of those things where it's like, wow, if they ever introduce some kind of conversion system, I'm set. It could be 10 to 1. I don't give a shit. Like, it
100 to 1.
It would, okay. Like, it would really just take a long time to eat away at those excess coins. And you can think like, oh, well, maybe they have to balance around that a little bit. But you also have to remember, I think the people with the amount of excess coins that like I have right now are in the small minority. And I don't think there's anything wrong with like helping those people out, like, because it's such a small percentage of your player base that, like, if they actually gave me a reason to do stuff with my extra coins, I'd probably have a more okay time putting money into the game because I don't feel like I'm gambling like nearly as much. Because literally right now, it's just gambling with packs at terrible odds. I'd rather go to a casino than play these mercenary packs. Like, the odds are stacked against you. The more mercs you get max, the worse it gets. And it's just, it's such a strange thing because you would think you would want the people who are very invested time-wise and also a lot of times money-wise, you would think you want them to feel positively about spending money in the game, right? That reinforces that behavior. If you have a positive pack opening experience, like if I just go and buy 50 packs for standard or whatever, and I just pop 2 golden legendaries, I'm going to be feeling pretty good about my purchase, right? Because that's just like, wow, I got this, it felt good. It's like a good feeling. Whereas with Mercenaries, because there's so much less, there's no duplicate protection. There's all this stuff that feels like we've went backwards with compared to Hearthstone packs. Like there's no effective dust system, right? Like coins are infinitely worse than dust. Hell, at this point, I would welcome a dust system in this game over the coins. Like convert it. Like I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Scrap coins.
But like literally, like the way things are with coins just doesn't. It just doesn't feel good, and it's not just the players who have put all this time into maxing their mercs out that have this problem. It just gets worse the closer you get to getting there. Like I can't count the amount of comments I get on videos about the extra coin stuff. Like, and it's not all people who are heavily invested and have all these characters maxed. A lot of the times it's people who are still trying to level their characters and they're getting frustrated because they go to open a pack or do a bounty reward and maybe they're missing, like, I don't know, 70% of the characters, 80% of the characters nowhere near maxed, but maybe they maxed out their one PvP team or something, or their one grinding team, and they're still getting coins from those guys when they need it from pretty much anyone else. And obviously, in that scenario, the odds of that happening are smaller, but it only gets worse as you progress. And that just is so strange. I think that is really just like, it seems counterintuitive to a game where you're supposed to care about leveling up your characters and completing this collection, that it feels like the mountain is getting steeper and steeper as you're getting closer to the top. And it's just a terrible, terrible feeling. Like, I know I wailed out a little bit in the beginning, but I have significantly cut back on any kind of money putting into this mode. Because I do content stuff, I still get like the bundle with the legendary merc on launch and stuff, and I'm a fan of the skin, so I usually grab that the following week. But I will, and until something changes, I would never even remotely consider buying packs on their own in this game with real money. With gold, sure, I'm not really playing a lot of constructed right now, so it's not really a loss to me. It's kind of free. But if you're someone who plays multiple modes, you have to be thinking about that gold. The mini set's coming up, it's a very valuable resource. So it's just a very confusing and frustrating problem, and it's disappointing to me that even though we know it's supposedly being worked on, we have no kind of time frame for this whatsoever.
Yeah, I really hope we get some information, definitely before even next month. I'm hoping this month, maybe by the end of it, that we get some information on this and just letting us know. Just be like, hey, we are currently working on it. It will get to you. And then give us, even if it's a long time frame, like months from now, just so people can know, not just, oh, let's just hope, this is in this month or maybe the next patch. I think we've been saying for the last 3 Merc patches, oh, we think it's going to be next patch. Oh, okay, it's not this one. I think it's the next one. okay, I think this is going to definitely be the patch, and nope, it's another one of nothing even mentioned about it. So I think they just definitely need to say something to us about when is it coming.
And that
something simple as that, I think, would be just perfect.
Yeah, and it takes away from, I think, some of the excitement that we would normally have from something like this, because people focus on what's not there rather than what is. And obviously you got to take with the good with the bad, but it's like, this is going to be a shadow over every single thing that comes out for this game, no matter how good, or in other cases how bad. This is going to be there. It's not going to go away. And the longer they take to deal with it, the more people are impacted by it, and the more people that are going to get upset by it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. What do you think about all that, Mullahoo?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we were probably a little too optimistic to think that the coins fix would be coming soon. But I'm there with you guys 100% in saying that just like communicate something would be chill. Even about, because obviously, right, you have to just start thinking of like going down the rabbit hole and thinking like, okay, if they're really far away from it, they don't want to like almost give you the announcement that like, it's 6 months out, because then so many people just go like, all right, never mind, forget about it, and drop.
I'd take that at this point, to be honest with you, if they could just give us a time.
Right, but if the average person is coming into Mercenaries and they're like, oh, the fix to this format is coming out in months, like forget about it. Like, I'm just going to play the other modes. So I don't know. It truly just seems like an unenviable position from their spot, and we will be here when it happens, right? I think we are essentially more or less locked in on, we will see this out so that we can uphold the vision, the journalistic narrative throughout all of this. So I'm really excited for whatever that will be. It'll be an amazing day, but that day is not today.
Yeah, unfortunately. And we don't really know. We talked about this, I think, a little bit at the beginning, but it was mentioned, they were trying to ship a feature for 22.4. We don't really know if that was something that didn't make it in time, or if the feature was this new event. Maybe eventually we'll get some clarification on that. But the other thing, the kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about, is one of the things that's right up there with excess coins for me. However, this one obviously affects a much smaller percentage of the player base, but it's the problem with the leaderboard and the MMR system. It's been, so if for those who do not know, there was a change to how Mercenaries, kind of the ranking system works. It's calculated, and this went out back in like earlier mid-December, a bit before we got Valera. And basically what this change did is it improved climbing, so it was actually kind of easier to climb at the lower ranks. However, and the intention with this was because even like the top of the top Mercenaries players under the old system could not hit 12K. Like the gains relative to your losses made it almost impossible to hit 12K, even for literally the best players in PvP. Like, so normal players, casual players, not even like close. And the way the rewards are stacked, like the best reward, what I'd consider like legend equivalent in terms of rewards and like standard and stuff, is 12K. So they clearly wanted to make that, and they even said they wanted to make climbing a bit more of an enjoyable experience. And I think with this change, they did accomplish that for, a large percentage of the player base. However, if you happen to be in the top whatever percentile, and you're playing enough games where you're ending up on the leaderboard, this is a problem, because it does not scale down, and there is a cap. So you can actually hit the cap, 14,000, and there's no determining who is on top. There's no going past that. It's just a hard cap, and it's been this way for the last 2 seasons. And they have acknowledged that this is a thing. They're working on it. They don't want it to be this way, but it sounds like, due to no mention of it in the patch, it's gonna be the same for the February season. And that's pretty much 3 seasons of invalidated leaderboards. the game has been out for like 4 or 5 months. That's over half the time the game has been out. And, I'm all for patience and understanding features take time, but it's a little fucking unacceptable to me that this has gone on this long. Because it absolutely is hurting the experience for players who want to compete at the top. It's just, and it's all for, past that 12K, it's all for, bragging rights, personal satisfaction. There's no mythic, there's no Masters Tour, right? Like, we're not competing for anything like that. But it's just, on EU last season, there were 171 people who placed 14K for the season's end. The full leaderboard is 200. It is not outside the realm of possibility that this season we could see a full 200-person 14K leaderboard. Or even more than that, but we wouldn't obviously see those people because they wouldn't get shown. And it's just a little bit absurd to me. Like, if this is a problem that takes time, longer time to work out, the very least that could have been done is reverting to some kind of the old system. And I think the whole reason they aren't doing that is because for the majority of players, it's a positive. It makes their climbing experience better. And so they don't want a majority to suffer for, the minority. But this decision is actively hemorrhaging top players from the game. And it only gets worse month after month because people just really feel like they don't give a shit. I'm not saying that's how they feel, but that's how people feel that it's being treated, because we know nothing about it. So yeah, I'm curious what y'all have or what y'all think about the situation. I'm obviously not very happy about it, to say the least. That's how you
really feel, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly didn't have a huge issue with the fact that the MMR was all wonky until, obviously it's not ideal. It's strictly not ideal. But the point that really drove it home for me is when we realized that there could be people who would literally, like the 200 person tie, the 201 person tie, to be that person who doesn't get to be on the leaderboard despite putting in all of the work. Even just the threat of that would dismay many people from even trying, right? Which is definitely something you're talking about. And we need the top players to be able to continue to push the meta, be the kind of optimistic players, be the ones that are grinding all the time, kind of keeping things going. So losing them is not good. I think it sucks because they obviously tried to fix it, like you said, for the average player, and it really messed up the top. When there's nothing to play for, quote unquote, I see why they start to value it a lot less importantly than a lot of the other problems that are in the game mode. And I would personally even still put the MMR fix below coins fix for sure by a lot, below rewards from PvE and bounties, right, by a lot, below accessibility to Mercs by a lot. So there are things that have to come before it, and we do have the privileged position of being able to see all of them and complain about all of them when they go slightly awry. But it's going to be one of those things that will be fixed. We know it can be fixed. It's just a matter of when. It sucks that it is yet another thing that is slow to be fixed.
And I think the bigger thing, much like the coin issue, is that it's frustrating to hear it's being worked on without any kind of, I don't even need like a super accurate or like, I just like literally if they said both of these issues will be fixed within 6 months, within 8 months, whatever. I want to know that there's a point where I'll stop having to hope towards the future, because every month that passes, that hope gets smaller and smaller, and it just feels like it isn't happening. And that's, to me, I think that's what's making a lot of people stop.
Another perception issue. Yeah, just another, yet again, the players are just left to their own devices. We are going mad.
And that's what happens with a lack of communication, right? Like they have improved with communication. So I'm not saying they haven't. But it's, and I think they're only, I don't blame them for communicating how they're communicating, because I think there really is only so much they can say, right? Like the people we're communicating with aren't the people who have the power to pull the levers and make a lot of these decisions, right? So I think that is an important distinction, because it's not like those people specifically don't care and aren't putting in the work. They are, but there's only so much they have power to do, right? Like, but yeah, what do you think about all it, WizardBeast?
I mean, last season I ended on the leaderboard at 14K and tied with, I think it was like 80 other people. And honestly, it feels bad just because I don't mind if like a bunch of other people are above me. You know, these are all great players who are hitting these leaderboards. But I would like the chance, you know, to like prove to myself and maybe just like to try and get higher on there. So just having a simple, you know, fixes. I bet that somewhere they have the number of just 14,000. What if they just shoot it up a ton, let people play as much as they want, and their numbers can go as high as possible? You know, I don't think there's going to be people who are everyone's going to grind at 20,000 or something like that. Just have a ludicrous number for it. And I think something simple as that could probably just fix it in the meantime. You know, just have something, or even if it's tie at 14K, somehow if they could fix it where if you win, your win counts and you're going up a spot. You know, just not so I'm at 14K. Okay, I'm stuck here for the season. Oh, I'm at rank 60. Okay, can't do anything. I guess I wait till next season and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, it's just something to make it so you don't hit the top and be like, okay, I'm at the top. Now I just stop playing. That's not good for the mode at all. I think it would be better if people are like, okay, I'm at the top. I want to stay at the top. I'm going to keep playing to hold my position throughout the month. Because I'm looking at the leaderboard right now, and for Europe, there's already 13 people tied at 14K.
Yeah.
So almost
It's so much more of a pure race at this point instead of a competition in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's who has the most time early on in the month to play as much as possible to get to the very top.
And
so
on top of that, the who gets there first is not what determines who ends on number one.
It's not even a race.
A great example of this is one of the members of the mercenary community that hangs out in a lot of the different Twitch streams, Cookie. It's funny, right? Cookie. But they told me they hit, I think they play on EU, and they hit 14K, I think like the last day just before the season ended, and they finished number one. And they were one of the last people to do it. And it's awesome. Like we've tried different stuff to not me personally, but other people in the community have tried different things to kind of see if there's a method to the madness of how this 14K is stacked. I don't think anyone's been able to figure it out. There have been some weird theories, but there's no way to advance yourself up on the leaderboard by winning games at 14K. But if you lose games, you're sure going back down. And that is just, it literally incentivizes, oh, I hit 14K. All right, I'm done playing ladder for the month. And they're, like you just mentioned, WizardBeast, there are players on EU, over 10 of them already did it. They did that kind of race to 14K at the beginning. And now, outside of just some fun or for the daily rewards or coins or whatever, there's not really a reason for them to play ladder. So while I don't think, just increasing the cap would be a long-term fix, if we could just get that as a short-term fix, I'd be happy at this point. Like, there's still more issues with it. It would be far from a perfect fix, and I do think we would still end up with ties and stuff, but I think it would at least be a little bit better and maybe could tide things over until they can get an actual fix, because at this point, it feels like whatever the fix is for this is clearly taking more work than the first one they implemented, right? Because they implemented that first change so casually. It was not in a major patch. It just kind of slipped in with a balance update, I'm pretty sure, and it was barely even mentioned. And it completely changed things and just has basically made the leaderboard a graveyard for the past 3 months. And it's just that it's been a quarter of a year. Like, I'm all for being patient, but when it's just, it gets to be a little much when we still don't even have like any kind of estimate other than it's coming eventually. But yeah, that is, wanted to talk about that just because Yeah, it's an issue on a lot of people's minds. I basically see people talk about it like daily, whether it be in the Discord or the YouTube comments, or you can't escape it, as especially as someone creating Mercenaries content. It is not escapable because these are the things people want answers to. I think the coins thing is the number one thing at the very top that also affects the most amount of people, but this issue is really hurting a lot of the people who care about being competitive in the mode, and that's a net negative for everybody, because the less people we have who want to be competitive, the less good decks that are going to be tested and going out there. And like, I'm sure a lot of people in Mercenaries just like going on, like in Hearthstone, going on a deck website and saying, oh, this is cool, this is cool deck, looks good, looks strong, I want to try it out, because it's hard to be a good deck builder and stuff, and you have to experiment a lot, and usually that involves a lot of losing before you start winning. And losing's not fun for everybody. So some people just like being able to say, hey, this guy hit 14K, he had a really good rating, I want to try out this comp. And the longer this issue persists and the more top players that leave because of it, the less of that there's going to be. And that's a net negative for everybody, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so this has been a super long episode. There was just an absurd amount of stuff to talk about, so we're winding it down.
Out of left field with just a million things.
Yeah,
we're not ready.
No, the longest episode yet. We just broke last week's record. But we are going to get to our end question here. So each of us, who do we think is kind of the best new Merc of the bunch for PvP? Early impressions. You want to start this off, Mullahoo?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna vote for my Spectral Kitty Cat over here. I'm gonna say Xuen makes a big enough deal. I think this pounce ability is crazy. I think nature is already pretty juicy. I think nature's Smurrow, but you replace Smurrow with Xuen is a really great place to start looking. Good equipment. I mean, pretty just well-rounded, clean. It's hard to imagine that Xuen is gonna be unplayable. They're probably not gonna be broken, but they're gonna be like an 8 out of 10 or something like that, I would say, with an honorable mention going to Longjin, the crazy arcane dragon, but won't steal WizardBeast thunder.
Yeah, what do you think, WizardBeast?
Yeah, my vote definitely for Longjin. A little biased to love arcane. I've always loved the play style, so I think that's definitely my pick. That can be very strong, especially if that third ability of swap with one of your other mercenaries, give it life, and then also it becomes the new target of abilities. I feel like that can mess up a lot of synergies or any combos or anything. So I think, also on top of that being a dragon, I think it will have definitely some place that can probably show up in this next meta.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think if I, gun to my head, if I had to pick, I'd probably say same thing. But I do think after talking about her a bit today, I think I'm a bit higher on Chi-Ji than I was initially. Initially, I wasn't super duper impressed, but after thinking about it some more, I think there could actually be something here. So maybe that'll be my answer. I think she has potential to be much stronger than she looks on the surface, because we've never really seen too much of scaling healing stuff. And if it's anything like scaling damage, it's going to be powerful. And I mean, it does even scale damage technically with her last ability. Maybe there is a weird build with fire that actually does want her. Just got to do some experimenting to figure that out. So I guess I'll go with Chi-Ji for my pick, even though I do think Longjin is probably going to be the stronger one. And I'm excited to try dragon stuff with him. And that ability, like you said, is just, it's absurd. And I think it is the coolest ability out of all these Mercs by far. As soon as Eudora was printed, I was like, they've got to print something like this. And 2-3 Merc drops later, here we go. And they're keeping these kind of unique, very in-depth, not cookie cutter abilities. So I really hope we see more of that, and hoping this is a trend that continues, because it's just so much more fun to build and talk about them when we're dealing with abilities we've basically never seen anything like before. It's like a breath of fresh air, you know. But that is going to be closing it out for us. Before we go, do want to let you know where you can find each of us here on the internet. You want to start, WizardBeast? Where can our viewers find you?
Sure, I can be found on Twitter at twitter.com/WizardBeastOP, and also on Twitch, twitch.tv/WizardBeastOP.
Awesome. And Mullahoo, what about you?
Same stuff as always on Twitter at MullahootTTV, at Twitch at /Mullahoo, and writing articles for esports.gg. You can find, if you just search Stephen Mullahoo esports, just actually put out a new article today talking about kind of honestly an abridged version of what this podcast talked about for all the Mercs. New guide is going to be up apparently within a week or something like that. I have to go start a new guide. I literally just got the other guide up like 2 days ago. So new guide on the way. We'll see.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely go check out those articles. Mullahoo puts a lot of work in them, and they are a really, really great resource, especially if you're someone who, I know there are a lot of people who prefer different ways of like kind of getting that information. Not everyone is about, listening or watching a video. Some people really appreciate that kind of article form. So definitely go check that out if that's your thing. And for me, you can find me here on YouTube as always, Zombies Go Nom Nom. Same on Twitter. And I am trying to stream a bit more. My goal is end of the month. Hopefully, I will have a more regular schedule figured out. For the time being, it's mostly just late night EST times, whenever I can find some time for it. And Mercs content does go up Monday through Saturday on YouTube. Twitch, you can find me, Zombies Go Nom Nom, zombies with a Z instead of an S. Maybe one day I'll be able to get that changed, but for now it is what it is. But if you're still listening, we want to thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Hope you are looking forward to some of this cool new stuff coming in Mercenaries on Tuesday. And that is going to be it for episode 10. So this is the Fighting Pit signing off. Catch y'all next time. Peace.
Thanks, guys. As Tangster would say, stay safe.
But he can't do it himself.
Next year's got him.
Yeah.